Hello and welcome to the Naval Warfare Expansion Tournament. We've got 2 days of exciting cards for you. I'm joined by J King. In the wings, we've got Berto and Thanatron, who are going to be coming in and helping us out with some games later. And in the studio, we have Christo, who has abandoned the host duty to go and press buttons instead. How are you doing today, J King?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited for the Naval Warfare Expansion Tournament. There is a lot of different interesting decks going on. There's a lot of different interesting cards going on.
Yeah, we've been taking a look at the deck lists, but let's take a look quickly at the bracket and just get a quick overview of all the players we have today. So we have, again, giving us a slightly difficult time with names, so we're just going to be going UIO versus Taboo, Nuff versus Say, SYS versus 66 Better, Radish versus Last Man. So these players are going to be playing a best of fives with one ban as they fight through this first stage of the tournament, trying to reach towards the finals, the bronze place match, and yeah, it's going to be a good time. But we're not going to dilly dally too much. The first one we're going to be looking at is UIO versus Taboo, and I kind of just want to jump straight into these player profiles and, you know, not dilly dally, just get stuck into it. And there we see UIO, 1,100 matches with a 57% win rate. So, you know, reasonable ladder stats, but a Swiss record of 5-0, which is really quite an impressive Swiss record. Most played Soviets might explain the you know, the slightly lower win rate to other players, but that is still a 57% win rate. You know, you say, oh, it's a lower win rate, but it's still a ridiculously high win rate. And let's take a look at their decks. So we see we have a Jur US ramp deck. This is a fairly popular deck on ladder at the moment, and it's the same in our tournament. We've got a lot of players bringing this, and we do see this deck getting pretty heavy. We've seen people bring in the Mouse. We've got the Alpine Festung. You've got the Leopold. It's got a really heavy top end, but it also has some really powerful early to mid game tools. You've got the Route, which was recently changed, very powerful. 1-2-3s is quite versatile. It can fight slightly earlier on, but then it's also a late game sort of game ender. And then you've got things like Crossfire to clear the board and reset. No healing, however, that can be a little bit of a weakness against some other decks. Commandos and Navy Burn can take advantage of that lack of healing, but we'll see if they can just ramp out the game and finish before that becomes a problem. We have Soviet Japan aggro. We've seen a lot of aggro decks with Japan Soviet, but we see here UIO doing Soviet main and putting in the counter-offensive package, which can just help you close out games out of nowhere, especially with this Type 94 early. You can put a bunch of units down on board, play Winter Warfare, damage them all, and then play the Type 94 after, ensuring it doesn't die to the Winter Warfare, and buff it up to sort of just one-shot your opponent in an OTK manner. And then we have the Britain-Germany deck. This is a somewhat popular deck today. We see a few players bringing this. It's a little bit more defensive. We see things like the fortification in here. Obviously, Glamour Boys recently rotated, so now Britain decks are forced to bring back this fortification. Something we've seen in the most recent expansion is healing has been sort of nerfed and reduced quite heavily, and fortification has sort of come back into the limelight a little bit just to try and keep you alive. We see 2 copies of it, which I think is fairly standard for a lot of decks at the moment, just trying to make their way through the burn. But then we also see, I believe, the Sherwood Foresters, which there's only one in here, but some decks have been running sort of 3 or 4 copies of these, and it can be very dangerous with the route. I expect even 1 copy, just preventing a single draw, can be quite powerful. But it's, instead of focusing on this handlock package, it's more just focusing on value. We've got things like Blitz Doctrine in here. We've got the Churchill Havre, the Queen's Own, the Wellington. So it's less focused on this sort of handlock package, and it's more focused on just trying to be a normal sort of control deck. And then we have an incredibly popular deck at the moment, Japan Legions. This is one of the most dominant decks in the game at the moment. There was a lot of new intel support in the most recent expansion. Tano got its cost reduced, and then this Thunder Division as well. These are sort of the main 2 driving points for this deck. It just means you have this inevitability where you will close out and end the game. Previously, one of the worries with Legions was often decking out. If you couldn't close out the game with your Tarnos, then it could be quite difficult to actually finish the game. But with this Thunder Division, it just makes it so much more difficult to withstand this push from this Japan Legion decks. But those are the decks for UIO, and I'm going to be throwing it over to J King to continue.
Alrighty, let's take a look at TAB, more commonly known as Taboo. So, 619 total matches, substantially less than UIO, and with a Swiss record of 3-2, barely scraping into this top 8. But Taboo is a veteran, most played Britain, and a 66% win rate, impressively high, higher than UIO's actually, despite the inferior Swiss record. So showing a bit more comfortability, playing ladder, playing out these matches. Let's see what decks Taboo has brought forward, because Taboo is previously experienced in this tournament. Taboo has made it to the first expansion tournament, so they've got some experience on their side. First deck up is Britain USA Commandos. You know it, you love it, you hate it. It is a very straightforward deck of just trying to gain extra credit slots with War Machine and War Bonds, and then you use those extra credit slots to summon several boards of Commandos, which deal 1 damage whenever you play an order, and then play lots of orders. A very straightforward deck, relatively speaking, but there's a few very key decision points with this deck that often come up in when do you go for your Commandos? When do you risk putting them on the board in case your opponent might be able to clear them? When are you under enough pressure that you feel you need to start going in? And Taboo has a very interesting tech choice in here with a single copy of 1/2/3s, which I absolutely love for this deck. You can turn it into an additional Commando, or you can turn it into an additional Rangers, and unlike most other Commando decks, Taboo's also running Wellington, so you can turn it into an additional Wellington for a little bit more burst to just close out the game. So despite being a very popular deck, of definitely Taboo's putting his own spin on it. Second deck is another very popular deck, the most popular deck at this tournament, in fact. It is Japan Soviet Aggro. This deck is just all about trying to get onto the board very early with Colm, and then using Rush, one of the new cards from Naval Warfare, to just absolutely annihilate any units your opponents plays in the early game, so you can just keep up the pressure, putting it into the HQ, and then you have some big draw cards at the bottom of the deck with a Kagi. Scouting Party can get a lot of draw going to help find you into either additional units to throw on the board, or cards like the Kian or the Shinano to help close out the game. And interestingly, Taboo has a single copy of the Atsu, which I believe is a cards expansion first. I believe this is the first time we've ever seen this in any sort of competitive play, so that's going to be interesting to see if that comes up. Third deck from Taboo here is the German USA deck. His opponent has this on the other side of the board, although I believe there are 1 or 2 card differences between them. But this is a bit of a ramp deck, similarly to the Commandos, where it's got the War Machines, it's got the War Bonds. But unlike the Commandos, this is a much more unit-centric, and you're trying to specifically get as much value out of the 1/2/3s as you can. There is a lot of different ways to combo with the 1/2/3s in this deck. This deck is able to OTK from hand, it's able to withstand pressure with the Alpenfestung and just essentially try to out-heal the problems. It's able to close out the game with big units, or it's able to dominate the board early if you get the right hand. So this is a very versatile deck, but honestly, it might be one of the hardest decks in the meta right now to play perfectly. So we'll see how much experience Taboo has put onto this deck. And last but not least, Taboo is running a USA German deck. This is the only one of its kind in this tournament, and essentially it's trying to do a similar thing as the German US deck, but with USA main. That's just how powerful the German version of the deck is. But with US, obviously you run a lot less German cards, which are... You really like the German cards in that deck. So at a cost, you are running a lot more US cards, so to put up for that, he's got Patton in there. He's got the Devil's Brigade, the Missouri. These are going to help clear out the board, clear up the board in the early game. And then on the later end of things, he's got the M6, the P-51B, of course, strategic bombing, a staple. And then there's the cards that you would expect in this deck. Crossfire to help clear the boards, 1/2/3s, and Michigans to help close out the game. And of course, everybody's favorite, US military research. Just go for nukes if nothing else works. So that is Taboo's decks. And now let's take a look at the bans.
Oh, Soviet main banned. That is not something you normally expect to see. That is the aggro deck banned out from UIO. And then the Germany-US ramp banned from Taboo. Do you agree with these bans?
I think the Germany-US ban is very sensible. It's a very scary deck. I think just pure win rate-wise, something like the Japan Soviet or the Commandos might be slightly better, but the German US deck is just very, very scary to play against. Looking at Taboo's ban against UIO, the Soviet Japan is definitely not a deck I've had much experience playing against. In my mind, it was just the weaker cousin to the Japan Soviet. It was very similar to this US German, where you just swap the allies and try to do it again. So the fact that he's banning the Soviet version instead of the Japan version tells me that Taboo has played these matches. He's done practice on these decks and against these decks, and he feels that the Soviets have something of an edge that the Japan deck doesn't. If he just wanted to ban something aggressive.
Well, that Japan deck there is the Legions deck, if I'm not mistaken. There's
Oh, that would be
there's the
why.
Legions deck, and then there is the Soviet Japan aggro deck. But I'll point out that the most played nation for UIO was Soviet, so we might have something of a reputation and an expert on our hands. Where Taboo's looking at this, going, "This is their favorite deck. I know they're good at this. I'm just going to take away their comfort pick."
Yeah, maybe it's possible that UIO spent the season grinding out and perfecting the Soviet version of the aggro deck. And yeah, it also makes sense that he didn't ban the Japan version because it's again not Japan Soviet aggro. But interestingly, Japan Poland Legions is sort of the monster on ladder. It's one of the menaces like Commandos. But in this event, only 2 players brought Legions. The other 6 chose to go for the much more aggressive Japan Soviet aggro. And that is something that we see from these 2 players, with Taboo bringing Japan Soviet and UIO bringing the Japan Poland. So we'll see a bit of a battle of the Japans here.
Why do you think that is? We've seen so many players replace this Legions deck with this aggro deck. Is it just for the tournament, trying to play into what they expect other players to be bringing? Or is it that the players don't think this deck is as strong as a lot of people think it is?
I think it is starting to fall out of favor in the meta with the rise of the Germany-US deck and just route being thrown into everything. It's also can be particularly weak into handlock, which is we're seeing a lot of people bringing handlock as the 4th deck into this lineup.
Now we see Japan versus Japan, but not a mirror, because one is a Legions deck and one is an aggro deck. But these Legion decks, as you see, can still have very aggressive starts. However, Taboo's 1-drops are superior, being able to trade and survive.
The very good draw stretched the line from UIO. The alternative options did not feel particularly great, especially with this Bloody Sickle in the hand of Taboo. But now we'll see. Taboo gets a choice of another 1-drop and can push the Kulm up.
Really like getting this Shibata out nice and early, just making sure that any orders that are played do generate a little bit of extra burn for you, just help you eat away at that HQ. But 33rd Recon also offers draw, so just going to be whether Taboo is prioritizing the sort of longevity with the 33rd Recon or a bit of extra damage with the Shibata.
Yeah, I'm interested by this Recon play because I feel like Shibata Legions is going to play a fair amount of orders, and it doesn't have a easy time removing a Shibata from the support line. And with a superior hand size and the sickle, I would feel that I don't need the more draw, but Taboo has definitely played more games on this deck than I have. The front line gets taken and expansion draws 2 from the second Type 94, and Taboo has a few ways of dealing with this. Might want to save the sickle for the Legions in the support line.
It's just going to take it out now. Can get the value trade. Finds the Otsu. Now, I wonder with this, getting these 33rd recons down, I wonder if this is to try and play around the 56th recon, because this is a very popular card in the Legions deck that does 1 damage to everything. However, you would think you could play this 33rd recon as a reaction. Maybe worried about the 56th recon coming out and getting targeted by like the Out the Mist and just doing damage to the board.
Taboo playing his Otsu, we get to see it actually be played, but that punish from UIO hits the 50-50 to get UIO a card draw, but also it hits the second recon, which denies Taboo a card draw, and this Raiden Brigade's still sitting in the hand to potentially deny the draw on the other recon as well.
Shift and Doctrine going to replace itself, give you a completely different card, but also trigger that intel, just gives you a little bit more information about the opponent's hand.
Very interesting that UIO is choosing to save this Out of the Mist. They could have used it on the 1 health column, taken the front line just to potentially deny an expansion draw. But this Type 93 might be the card that they had in mind here, because this card can be a pain to remove, and if you can't remove it, it's going to get so much value buffing the attack of all your units.
I do think as well there's value if you're not under pressure, holding on to it to potentially target your own 56 recon, because you play it, you target it without the mist, you do 1 damage to every unit on board, every enemy unit, and then you can then replay that salvaged copy. So it can be a really powerful way of shutting down these really aggressive decks with lots of 1 HP units, because you've got sort of 2 waves of 1 damage to everything. So it's possible there's the sort of hope that, hey, I might top deck one of these and then I can use it straight away.
That is definitely true as well. 1 damage to everything can easily deal with a big board. Taboo is not looking too hot. The units over on UIO's side of the board don't have a ton of health at the moment, and the Shinano can hopefully clear things up, particularly hopefully hitting his Nakajima. Oh, and
Yeah,
a
gonna
full
completely clear the board.
And
That Shinano could not have gone more perfect. Finds the 56 recon, but doesn't have anything to do with it. Just gonna chuck down many units as possible to set up a big long range recon here.
now that gives him a lot of health, but this is not how Legions wants to be played. Legions wants to be having a huge hand and just infinite Tarnow draws going left, right, and center. This is not the way things are working out just yet. Very intriguing to Kyoto the bomber rather than the recon. Because if Kyoto's the recon, he can keep the Type 93 alive and then trade out the bomber for free with the Shibata.
Also, the 56 recon is pressuring whatever unit it attacks, because it's going to do 2 damage to either the Shibata or the Otsu if the Otsu was to try and go for the trade. So there's no way of effectively clearing this other than attacking with your own Type 93. So you have to sacrifice Type 93 here. And yeah, gonna end up taking the recon.
Now, perhaps a bit of a spectator leg
Oh,
there. Made it look
a
like they were
reverse Shinano. Where's it gonna go?
It's a lot less impressive. But the shifting doctrine to draw 2 cards into stretch the line is going to...
Gonna buy a little bit of time, but there's still a large amount of pressure. You're on 8 HP. There's a Shibata on the board. Every single order is going to be taxing you by a substantial amount now. And a Kage, the perfect top deck for Taboo, gonna find them 3 new cards and allow them
And
to
a
play.
new
Finds
Akagi Rush
another-
Sickle, and that lets him guarantee remove the guard.
Oh no! It's just the perfect cards.
Yeah, 3 draws for... Well, I suppose if he draws the Type 93, he won't be able to play it. So he might be considering holding on to this Akagi for next turn, so he can
I
get
think
the 2
you
units
hold on
back.
to it. You've got 8 credit slots. You can afford to play this over 2 turns. You don't have to worry about getting that plus those 2 extra credits from the cost reduction. You can be a little bit slower here. And with 2 orders in hand, no way out of this.
Game. And Taboo showing why Japan Soviet is so popular. Why it's brought 6 out of 8 times compared to the Legion's just 2.
And this was looking over until this Shinano came out and just sort of had the perfect procs, wiped the board away, brought back the Otsu, and Otsu's sort of first debut here, winning the match.
Yeah, not only being in the deck and being played, but actually being the card that ends out the game.
It very much felt to me like a slightly smaller version of Dragon Slayer. You spend 1 less credit, and if your opponent doesn't have any air units on board, you've got 1 less attack and 1 less HP. So it's like a Dragon Slayer, but just a little bit smaller.
That's a very good point. Like a very good way of looking at it too. And with the lower to the ground, faster version of the deck, maybe that's just better than Dragon Slayer.
Now we see the Feared Commandos does find the War Machine. The perfect start here for Taboo. And we will get UIO's hand updated for you in just a moment.
Yeah, not keeping Wellington with Protected Convoy. I'm curious what he sees the use case of Wellington as.
But this has got to be like the perfect hand, right? You get protected convoy into war machine, into war bonds, into loads of cards, and you have the commander raid. You have a commander. You have a cup of tea. To me, this looks like the perfect commander opener.
Essentially. But on the other side of the board, we do see the Panzer Grenadier, Fog of War,
Yeah.
and this 70th Brigade, I think is what it's called, can be so annoying for commanders to deal with because none of your units attack it, and you don't have. Some people run duress, but you don't have access to a lot of suppress. So it's really just going to come down to pings, and until you can kill it, it's going to be healing and drawing an extra card.
Gonna play it slightly slower. Not gonna commit the commander raid just yet.
3 protected convoy, 2 commander raid, and a Baker Streets with a turn 4 war bonds, or turn 3 war bonds, sorry. You can't really ask for a better
Look at
hand from
this.
Taboo, but Route Fog of War is going to kill the next 2 draws.
Yeah, that's 2 draws shut down. However, Taboo may not need them because there's so much value already in hand. It's going to be able to do a lot of damage with what they've got already. And even when you have sort of 29 health, slightly scary with Commandos is they can just kill you out of pretty much nowhere. You know, you've got 29 health, you're unlikely to die in a single turn, but the possibility of a sort of 2-turn clock is a very realistic possibility in these sort of scenarios. See a lot of damage, a lot of orders coming out.
Chooses to use the production for just 2 damage. I'm wondering if that might come back, and he might come to regret that decision because that's 1 less credit on a following turn, and 1 less pings with the second commander raid, which might be needing to hit a specific unit.
These routed troops clogging up the hand. And, you know, UIO's deck wasn't even built to be strictly hand lock. It was built just more like a brick control deck, but it's still just a fog of war. You do so much damage to your opponent's economy. Now,
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have the full Sherwood package, but I mean, it's just showing just like how much handlock capabilities you have, even just playing 2 MI5, 2 Fog of War, Queen Zone.
and slightly controversial here, I did play a little bit of this deck myself. And it's incredible because your opponent can have a massive hand, and you're trying to figure out. Oh no!
If he'd kept the production, he could have gone for the second protected convoy there and gotten not only 1 additional ping off of the use of the production, but then an additional 6 pings off of the following protected convoy production.
Is starting to look rough, and yeah, your opponent can have a massive hand, but it's all routed troops, and it's starting to look a little bit like this for Taboo. They have a massive hand, but you know, a third of it is just routed troops.
And it's looking like Taboo very unlikely to come back into this game with already 2 commander raid gone. But I want to take this moment to mention just a lot of people complain about Commandos. It's probably the most complained about deck at the moment. But I think people do need to recognize the skill necessary to play Commandos perfectly 100% of the time. Because we saw Taboo, masterful mulligan, and just playing out these turns very confidently, but 1 mistake of choosing to use the production for 2 damage the turn before was the difference between 7 additional damage.
Although
like
with
UIO could be on
this,
7 health here. Not sure that would matter, but
I think it is still winnable though. No matter how bleak it might look at the moment, commander decks can output
he
so
top decked
much
the
damage.
3rd commander raid, and if it was going to be winnable, that would be how.
Oh my god, look at this. Full border commandos. He's just going for the HQ. Just wants to get as much damage out as possible.
If he hits a protected convoy off the Baker Street's developed order, that might start to cook. Air
No.
power, but he
Air
can
power,
production into
though,
air power to clear up the tank, or potentially just.
I think you've got to get rid of the tank.
Yeah, depending on how those pings work. But he doesn't. He needed. Oh.
Surely, does it? How is it going to trigger?
No, it suppresses first. He's one
Oh
off. He
no.
missed it with the previous turn, and he's out of orders in hand, which means Crossfire clears up the board.
Oh, so close.
If he top decks an order, it's a 50-50, but he has 3 convoys in the deck, if I recall
There's a
correctly.
convoy. He's got to have it. Is surely one of these pings. First ping goes face,
And it goes
cleans it
face.
up.
Oh,
That's a
that
2-0
was...
lead now for Taboo.
And Taboo, Taboo in the first game, both players, good hands. Taboo got a few fortune draws. That game, Taboo, that is not a standard game of Commandos. That is best case scenario for Commandos in that matchup. I think if you're UIO, you feel like you had that one and were robbed.
I always wonder to myself, when I lose to a Commandos game like that, what if I just put down one more unit to soak up some of this damage? Now
Yeah.
we see Jur US ramp versus US Jur ramp. Will this US main deck be the weak point of Taboo that allows UIO to come back into this? A very slow start here for UIO.
Yeah, not with the
Finds the
current
War
hand
Machine
Taboo
at
has.
least.
That is a crucial find.
Is so important. It was basically UIO's next few turns locked down until finding that. Now,
If this Panzer 3H finds a
goes for
war
the
bombs,
Tirpitz. That's just gonna skip Taboo's go.
I don't mind that actually, because you know Taboo, unless he does double War Machine, you're pretty much certain that and he just top decks the War Bonds. These players are drawing fantastically. Taboo also finding the turn 4 War Bond off the top, but he doesn't even need it. Capitulation
Ooh,
in
that's
hand.
such a good find, right?
I'm not sure why he doesn't go for the Panzer 3H first. Picks up the Comet. That is a snap pick. Comet is so important in this deck. But he pushes the research, which means he can no longer deal with these 175ths for 3 credits.
Here's a question for you. When are we
6s.
going for this pattern? We're going for it right now.
Is he going to push 3 6/6s?
Surely.
Surely he
If you're
have the credits for all of that. Yeah, he can push 2 6s to the front line. Oh, but he can blitz with the other one. He can blitz with it and only get 1 to the front line if he wants.
You can blitz with them anyway. They've got blitz.
Yeah, but I mean, you can attack again with the 175th in the front line if he wants, but that would be at the cost of getting 2 up there. Chooses to keep the 160 or the 123's version of it back.
Oh no.
And
we saw this coming. We saw this coming. You have to take this risk here if you're Taboo. You've got to say, do I just go for it or do I not? Because Leopold can't come down yet. They might have the capitulation, but you just got to decide when you're going to take these risks and try and push some advantage. I expect
USA military research. I think this is a pretty sensible pick. You're looking at the hand sizes. You're not feeling too great, especially with the 1-2-3 gone already.
Look at the value in this hand here. We've got the mouse, we've got the Leopold, goes to the synthetic oil, it's got the Alpine Festung. And I mean, I think synthetic oil, at least personally, I've been taking it more and more often. I feel like it's becoming increasingly popular as a payoff for these sort of US decks, especially now that Reichsbank doesn't exist anymore.
Adds depth charges. Fearing the potential 1-2-3 Comet shenanigans turn, just going to throw up the smokescreen on the HQ. But, I mean...
It's a lot of value lost, though. That's a huge hit to value.
And if now... you expect your opponent can realistically deal, like, 16 damage from hand, 20 damage from hand, they're going to be able to do that on the next turn as well. So this doesn't really buy you much.
I suppose the big fear was this synthetic oil, and now we just see UIO not trying to do anything too flashy, just get a big resource lead from this. I'm going to ramp myself up, I'm going to prevent you drawing, and I'm just going to clear your board. And I think this is sensible. When you have these huge amounts of credits, sometimes going for these uber big plays is what you need to do, but sometimes you just need to take a second and just do some basic sort of sensible grindy gameplay. Just, I'm going to clear your board, I'm going to get resource advantage, and then we'll see how it goes from there. Now we see
And this is really showcasing why the U.S. is the version of this, or U.S. is the ally with this deck typically, because looking at just the elites that came down there, M6 came down and did absolutely nothing, and it's just a big dumb Jasko, and then it just gets bounced by Leopold. The German elites all have blitz, they have tempo, they do things when they come down, but the P51B, the M6 are just guys on the board.
Oh, but look
The
at this
Red Devil
Alpine.
Alpine synergy though.
I'd also like to point out the
Oh.
US military research is
And this is
amazing.
lethal. This is lethal. UIO has lethal this turn. And he misses it.
Although, hold on,
Is it still lethal?
not miss.
This might be a different way
Okay,
of
now
going
it's
about it.
missed.
No, he still has it.
He's still got it. He's just doing some fancy footwork.
Yep.
So, the play me and JK wanted there was just 123's Comet, kill the HQ. But I'm happy to see some fancy footwork.
I was just looking at 123 Michigan, but
I was just looking. You play
forgot he
1, 2,
had
3.
Comet.
You play
To be
Comet.
completely honest.
You hit face with all your units.
And I mentioned it at the start of this. This US deck, I think, is the hardest deck in the game to play. Obviously, at that point, he just had a wealth of options for lethal, but it just shows how many different lines you have on any given turn. And I think UIO actually found the best one there because Bergman can still go for the double Michigan while also getting the Bergman draw and getting more value out of trading with the Bergman. So yeah, UIO actually showing why he's in the top 8 and we're casting this.
All roads lead to Rome. So long as one of these routes is going to end in lethal, then it's fine. Now we see legions against this US main.
I have to imagine from UIO that might have been his most favorable matchup into this US deck, just playing the better version of the deck, frankly.
Yeah. However, I could see this matchup still being reasonably okay for the Legions deck. You know, it could be slightly scary if there's some 6/6s in the front line applying a lot of pressure, but you could expect to get a stronger start, and that's what we've seen here. The War Machine should help Taboo out, but it's very realistic for UIO to expect to have the front line already when these 6/6s come out, which I think is really important because you tend not to have as strong like hard removal for these big units. You've got the Kyoto, which is really good, but that's just temporary. And when the unit you're stealing has blitz, it feels slightly worse because your opponent can kill your Kyoto and then just move up the unit straight away.
And this Pathfinder's pickup, it gets intel on it, but it gets intel on it too late. Can he clear up both the Karas and the Type 94 if he wants, or can just simply use for freedom to trade out and then still Pathfinders the Karas and now threaten the retreat with the veteran side?
I think you have to go for these value. Thinking about going for the Devil's Brigade, I think Karasa's got to go.
Yeah, I don't see a world where you want to leave this Karas up, especially because it just trades out Devil's Brigade.
It trades and it generates so much value. Maybe saying, okay, well, you're going to have to operate this, but it does give UOI the option. UI doesn't have to operate it if they don't want to. They could go for the trade. Possibly anticipating something like this and thinking that the US Missouri is going to be the key player here.
Yeah, no intel on the Missouri. Taboo has a very good option here. Just take out the 5/5, get the Pathfinders down. And now you're just threatening to bounce a tar down.
Yeah.
Obviously, we see the Kian in hand to take our Pathfinders. Can even throw out 2 out of the mists if he wants 2 Pathfinders in his hand.
Oh, 56th recon out of the mist into 56th recon out of the mist. Gonna pick up 2 copies of Pathfinders, and taking units like this are really powerful. Units with strong deployment effects, but also units that have the ability to come veteran, because both of these are ways of avoiding the downside of salvage, and Pathfinders has both of those. Pathfinders has a really powerful deployment effect, and then it becomes veteran, and it basically no longer counts as being salvaged anymore.
Yep. We see Tar now hitting the board.
Gonna go for the section. Doesn't want to
That
risk
does
throwing away
overdraw.
something important with this shifting attack because it does shuffle something away. And now we are reaching the point in the game where Taboo could do some real nasty work. We've got the 1-2-3s and the second Michigan.
If that was a second Michigan instead of a second 1-2-3, this turn would feel a lot better here.
Yeah.
Do you go for the Michigans and just put a bunch of stats in the front
I
line,
think
or do
you
you just double
I
pump the
think you
research?
wait a little bit. I don't think you go for it yet, but I think you're starting to look to the point where you can use it to go off. You could also go for this Panzer and just take a look, see if you can find another second Michigans. Because if you can find another second Michigans, you could do so much work. But just gonna go for it. Just gonna put a whole bunch of stats on the board.
And it can't feel good trade in there. Goes for the draw. Enigma, huge pickup. Unfortunately, not the greatest order, turning the Michigan into a Panzer 3H and drawing last.
Now, slightly awkward here with the Tarno. There's a bit of a curse of Tarno where you've either got way too many cards or way too few. You're never on this sweet spot where you've got space to draw as well as intel. But able to make it work. Gonna get some
And
value
the
on this
knowledge
shock
card
attack.
you're probably looking for here. Shifting Doctrine's going to pump up the Nakajima to a 6-5 to trade
And
out the Michigan.
this bomber is so powerful. You know, usually just these large statted units that come out in the mid game and grow, they can be a little bit weak to things like suppress and removal. But with this Legion's deck, if your opponent is using their suppress and removal on this bomber, that just saves your Tana and your Thunder Division. So it's sort of like you're saying there's too many threats for you to realistically deal with an answer. And now I'd be tempted to say, go for 175th first, surely.
Picks up the Duress. That'll answer Nakajima's strategic
Ooh,
bombing good, but doesn't actually let him kill anything other than the recon.
no, can go for the duress first to set up the clearing of the bomber. However, is that better than dealing with this Tano? Because your opponent has infinite value at the moment.
Chooses
Yeah,
take out the front line, take out the bomber.
how would you have felt about going 175th before going for this Enigma? Because obviously you put a card back on top of your deck, but then you nullify that by just drawing based on how many cards are in hand anyway.
You draw an additional card. I would have liked it specifically because he didn't have the credits to do push up, trade with the Panzer 3H, and then strategic bombing to take out the bomber. It was kind of Duress or bust. And Duress obviously costs 0, so it doesn't matter how many credits you spend before draw. You just want to maximize your chances of drawing into that Duress. But this board is, I mean, actually Crossfire can clear this board up very nicely. Crossfire is unfortunately not in the hand of Taboo at the moment.
But can go for the Bergman 1-2-3's draw. Finds a route. Route is a strong find. Going to be able to get rid of this Legions in the front line. However, there is still the question of Tano on board.
This is the issue of playing German ally, is he has to make cuts somewhere, and one of those cuts is to a Crossfire. He's only running one copy.
Thinking about just going for the trade instead. Difficult decision.
His hand is.
Oh look, he wants to get the he wants to get the Tano. Gets rid of the guard. Now gets rid of the war machine and can move up the tank and get rid of that Tano. Is fed up with the value. However, I fear the damage has already been done.
I feel like you.
No, don't move that up. Don't move that up. Keep it back, I reckon.
Just sacrifices it. And UIO just saying, you know what, I want more space on my board.
Yeah, you don't want to keep... These routed troops can be so damaging to Legion's board state because you need this space to be playing your units, but now there's a 7-7 in the front line.
And the only way to remove it is to trade in 2 6/6s while denying yourself 2 draws. That's not going to feel great, so we might just see M6 at depth charges.
One of the issues with these 1/7/5s, they have massive stats, but look at this. Put the War Machine back on top of the deck and effectively denied the ability to find an out. And now potentially just game over. We have the Anne, we have a large unit in the front line that can continue to grow.
I think the line he's looking at is 175th, using both 175ths to trade, and then using the tier 2 research for the destroy one random unit to hit the 8/8. Because there's no way he can get nukes in hand fast enough. There's no way that he can heal enough with penicillin. So he has to be going for the that option there.
Oh, route! That's huge! And possibly can buy time for the penicillin with the route.
And it's another 175th under the Kyoto, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. However, gonna have to be careful with how they use up these resources.
I think he actually has the credits.
Double trade, get the M6 down.
I think he actually has the credits to. No, he can't because the KARDS is guarded. But I think he can reach the front line here.
Aye, Captain. You can reach the front line, but is that better than just 2 M6s? And then you can turn one of those M6s into a Blitz infantry. But again, the card advantage is also getting worse as every time we play one of these units, we're putting stuff back on top of our deck.
And we saw the UIO play this Legion's deck in game 1 of this series, and he was just top decking like the Japan-Soviet deck. He couldn't find anything. It's really hit or miss on.
Hold on.
With
oh, never mind. I completely forgot what M6 did, and I was about to call lethal, and then I realized there's the M6 on the board. Your average ladder player, punish, gets rid of the 6/6, gonna generate some draw.
Make a 9/9. You know your opponent's only draw is research, so you're just trying to hit as many units onto the board because you know your opponent's best play. Well, actually, penicillin keeps you alive.
Penicillin, yeah. You could go penicillin. It keeps you alive, but it's your whole turn.
Is that better than going for the 1 in 6? I think if you go for the 1 in 6, you have an actual possibility of maybe winning this game. I think if you go for penicillin...
I'm inclined to agree. If you go penicillin, you're playing to not lose. But not losing isn't enough. You need to win. If you get rid of this 9/9, you're playing to win.
And he's going for it. Taboo knows what it takes to win a game. Unfortunately,
no,
he does not get it. He's not dead on board, though.
I appreciate...
He is dead to the Anne, but he's not dead on board.
I appreciate the wisdom in Taboo's mind there to say, I need to play to win this game. I'm going to take that 1 in 6.
Yeah. And yeah, it's always nice to see from a player where even if the line doesn't work and they had a different line that kept them alive for a turn, Taboo clearly going for the line that wins, and that's the sign of a good player. That's the sign of a great player. Is not.
I've spoken to you about this before. How there's 2 classes of players. There's players that sort of understand the surface level of what to do, and there's players that understand the deeper level. And that play there was a great example of understanding the deeper level. A very surface level understanding is, if I die, I lose the game. I need to stay alive. I'm going to do this so that I definitely stay alive. And that's a very understandable way to approach the game. But that's not the deeper level of understanding that can sort of win you these tournaments. And that deeper level understanding, Taboo really just displayed excellent there. Even though they lost the game, I think they really showed that, hey, I understand this game beyond the surface level and beyond just basic decision making.
For sure. Now, UIO has brought this back to a game 5. keeping research in hand with the wave already there, so it's a free proc of the wave on 6. Taboo hitting the War Machine on 2 for the 3rd time in a row. That's not been an issue for him here. And surely you just do 1, 2, 3's Bergman, you draw your 2 cards, and you set up pushing 2 6/6s to the front line on the next turn.
Looked like they were considering it. Possibly also considering putting a single 6/6 in the front line, but this is...
Unfortunately, the single copy of Dilemma is about to ruin his day.
Okay, but you got to look on the plus side. Now, when we get 4 Michigans on board, we can generate extra credits. Oh,
That is
God, look
true.
at that! Completely nullifies the advance here.
Oh.
He's gonna go for the duress. It's still gonna have 1 attack though, no?
No, I think duress resets everything.
I don't think it gives you back attack.
We're about to find out. It looks like Taboo is also unsure as to how this works, because duress is an incredibly important card, and it does.
Gets it back! Oh!
Holds on to the 1, 2, 3, saying, you know what, I have the Enigma, I don't need to draw cards here. Blackwatch is going to slow this down.
But it's very, very feels bad here playing the Blackwatch. You know, you're playing a 2/6 guard into a 6/6 infantry, and now Taboo with the big brain duress.
The wave clears the board.
Oh God, it does, with the radar taking it out, setting back Taboo's advance, and Taboo now.
I just feel like watching these tournament games, I feel like I'm just playing a different game when I'm playing ladder. Like, this is incredible. Both of these players are playing excellently, but both of these players are really not missing in terms of draws. No one's just lost to a bad hand yet. Like, in just that scenario, Taboo hitting War Machine on 2 for the 3rd time in a row, pushing up the 6/6, saying, you know what, I have this 6/6 in the front line, very good against your deck, gets hit with the single copy of Dilemma to shut down the 6/6, and then he has the single copy of Duress to counteract the single copy of the Dilemma, and then the set up with the only way to get a 0-cost order into the turn 6 wave to full clear the board to reset everything.
Yeah, but you know what? This is what good cards looks like. This is entertaining cards. This is the kind of gameplay I personally want to watch.
Oh, for
These
sure.
back and forths, I want to see players doing things. I want to see them sort of countering each other, 1 step ahead of each other, setting down ambushes and traps. And now, considering going for the crossfire to clear hand space.
I suppose he's just saying that he thinks the card he draws is going to be cheaper than Crossfire, which is probably true.
It is probably true, but it does also delay things by a large amount. Okay, gonna go for the Michigan into the front line.
And spectator mode is lagging behind a little bit here, but
we're able to work out what's going on. There's a
frontline Bergman Enigma.
No Enigma. There's not the credits for Enigma. There's a Blackwatch.
Oh, that's true.
It's just these guys in the front line. Now, so yeah, the Michigan and Bergman are in the front line.
And
give us just a moment. We will get this sorted out for you.
Okay, it drew a 0 health Michigan. I'm not sure what that means.
I believe that means Fog of War was played.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Fog of War in the Michigan there, very good, because you know your opponent likely does not have any 1, 2, 3s. Michigan's a pretty expensive card to put back in their hand. You don't always want a Fog of War Michigan, but...
No, but sometimes Fog of War is just, I'll deal with this later. Like, people get too worried about Fog of War and something of low value. Sometimes Fog of War is, look, I don't want to deal with this right now. Do this again, I'll deal with it later. Just hold on a moment there. We are just reloading this or getting this fixed. Slight issue here. Now, for people just joining us, we've got Taboo versus UIO. Hopefully the match is still ongoing when we relocate it. And here we go. It looks like M6 and US
Man.
Missouri in hand here. And UIO in a pretty dominant position, I'd say.
I'm just kind of confused as to what happened because the Enigma's gone and new cards are in hand, but new cards have been played, but the hand size is still small. And on UIO's side of the board, it's exactly the same. He still has this Blackwatch and this Wellington. Oh, the Enigma was on top of deck. That's why.
Ah!
That explains so much.
Was that an MI5 that put that back there?
Or it must have been. Although both these Michigans are gone. And the Fog of War is still there. So I guess Fog of War wasn't played, and maybe it was a 175th drawn and put it back. Maybe it was an Enigma top deck from UIO on the previous turn. Fortunately for Taboo, you can get two M6s. Doesn't have the credit to clear up, but...
Okay, just to fill in what took place, a Panzer IIIH was drawn, which found the M6. So that is where the Michigans went. The Michigans came out again, and then a Panzer H was found that drew the M6, and then MI5 came out and put Enigma back on top of the deck.
All right, protected convoy. Monty pins both these M6s. That is a bit of a positioning mistake from Taboo. This is like really showing how much skill each expansion adds into cards. It's just layering on top of it. Taboo's having to think about, okay, how do I order my units to convert 1, 2, 3 into this? How am I planning out my curve on the following turn? And while doing this, you have to be thinking, well, my opponent has a card that affects adjacent units, so I want these units to be on opposite sides of the HQ. There's just so much to think about at this point in the game here.
I gotta say, 1, 2, 3 layering. I'm sure you're quite good at it now that you've done a lot. I love this Mosquito Berkman, by the way. It's so fun. There's so much card draw. I'm sure you've got a lot of practice of 1, 2, 3 layering with the Michigan OTK deck, but I gotta say I'm so bad at it. I do my whole turn, I plan it all out, and then I'm like, oh, I've got 2 credits left. I'll play this little guy, and I just ruin my board state.
Yeah, there's so many times you're just like, oh, I had credits to play out this 2-drop. I'm just not going to play it out now because it ruins my entire board.
The difference is I don't realize it's going to ruin my board, and I'm like, oh, I'll play it anyway. I've got these credits spare. Now we see.
Looking at the game, it's... the M6 only protects you for so long, especially now that there's a 7-7 Fury in hand. Missouri is going to pick that up. No intel on that.
I think this could actually be the turning point where Taboo starts to take the advantage and the lead. Gonna get rid of the Blackwatch to set up the cost reduction and go for the Missouri, and there's a good chance of being able to take out this this bomber as well. I mean, if you're going to use the Pathfinders, you can get rid of this guard, but is then going to have some credit issues of reaching it.
Yeah, you can Missouri first, but I'm pretty sure that will push the guard next to the Wellington, so you can't trade off.
I think you just got to take the gamble. Go for the trade, go for the Missouri, and hope that you are in a position where you can attack into this.
And that... I got a good point from Berto there. That was a mistake from UIO on positioning around Missouri. I called out Taboo's mistake about Monty. Have to call him evenly. UIO did put the Queen Zone, the 7-7 Fury, in the middle of the units.
Now, Crossfire not working out because of this destruction trigger is going to separate the unit health.
And Taboo's put a lot of resources into this board, but he has an 11-7, which UIO not particularly close to being
Is
able
that
to
the one, two,
kill.
threes? Was
No,
that not the 1, 2, 3s?
it was not the 1-2-3s. This is just a straight up M6. Can you have Fog of War to be removed at some point, but it's just going to come back twofold. And
Yeah.
UIO not particularly close at closing out this game.
But we can do a lot here. We've got the Devil's Brigade, we've got the 175th. There's a
And
large amount
it
of
clears
pressure
up
coming out.
the Bergman immediately because of the Alpine effect. Now, he does not have infinite credits. There's no Michigans to just print credits here.
Yeah.
But if he had infinite credits, there's a non-zero chance that this is lethal.
I'd be interested in actually just being a little bit defensive and getting some war bonds going so that you do have infinite credits, but gonna be able to do 11 damage to the face. Surely you do the 11. That's half of that health total wiped out in a single turn. This also brings the HQ low enough that nukes threaten lethal.
That
And
is
yeah,
true.
down
And
to 11 with the Manhattan Project in hand. There is blood in the water.
And it's looking like this is going to be Taboo's game. These 3 routes clogging up the hand. Taboo not having played any 2-cost or lower units in quite some time, if ever. Yeah, no. Other than there was the Bergmans, but the Bergmans are gone, and the 1-2-3s are not staying 1-2-3s.
I'd be very tempted to, yeah, just keep storming towards this research.
Yeah, and you can also push up a 6-6 in the meantime if you want. Instead, just goes for the war bonds. Not going to be enough credits to drop a nuke next turn.
No, but it does allow you to develop and then also trade with the 6-6.
This actually gave the possibility of, if UIO had the Panzer IV-H, the fight veteran, to throw a 6-6 into the HQ that turn, which is a little scary. You
Oh,
can answer it, but
encirclement though.
that's
Is
there's no
that
1, 2,
better?
3. I mean, if you add nukes to hand, you're getting a little scared. You can route the Stug, so you're at most facing down 5. And UIO's deck, it's pretty straightforward. You've seen both tanks off of the Blitz Doctrine, so you know there's no mysterious secret blitzer in hand. You should just be able to route, add nukes, and be confident.
Yeah, just gonna go for it.
There is
Had
no
2
Ultra in the deck of
Manhattans.
UIO, so
Do we have a fortification left if we're UIO?
there's 2 in the deck. I don't believe 2 have been played this game.
I do believe 1 has been played.
Black Prince
Black
isn't going to
Prince,
do it.
not good enough. And that's going to be Taboo. Up against the wall on this US deck. Almost getting reverse sweep on this US Jur deck. Almost getting reverse sweep, but able to secure the victory in an explosive manner. Playing 2 Manhattan Projects. And bringing this HQ down from 11 to 0.
Moving on their record from the previous expansion tournament, or the first expansion tournament, where they got knocked out in the first stage, they will be moving on into the semifinals, where we will see them play again tomorrow. But UIO, 5-0 in the Swiss, almost pulled off the reverse sweep against a veteran player. Absolutely nothing to scoff at. And, I mean, 5-0 in the Swiss suggests very heavily, maybe we'll be seeing UIO again. That's the type of record of a player that's going to come back.
I do wonder if Taboo is now feeling a little bit less confident. Because, you know, you bring these slightly more niche decks and you're feeling very confident on them, and then you start losing on them. And you just think to yourself, what have I done? I'm stuck with this deck now for the rest of the day. Or if Taboo's thinking, that's fine, I survived. This deck is going to, you know, show its worth and it's going to carry me all the way to victory. But that's all for now. We're going to be discarding of us, and we're going to be throwing it over to Thanatron and Birdo Burrito, who will continue the show.
All right. Thank you, Bubbles. If you've been discarded, I suppose we've been top decked to go over the bracket here. We've got Taboo moving on, and we are about to get into Nuff versus C. And then later today, we've got our other two round one matchups. We've got 66 Better versus Sis Wister. That's what I'm going with for that one. Felt right in the moment. And then lastly, we have Radish and Last Man rounding out our 4 matches for the day. So, Berto, what do you think? Looks like my yellow shirt is very close to the green of a green screen somewhere. What do you think about the first match so far that we've gotten to see on this new expansion?
I think it was a great couple of games, and the decks were, significantly impacted by the expansion. Nobody can say that, watch those games and say, oh, well, we didn't see too many expansion cards. No, things are definitely shaken up, and I appreciate that a lot. And these decks that have been created, some of them really test your skills to adapt to different play styles, particularly with the 1-2-3s, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, really, really great point, I think, because the 1-2-3 deck is kind of like a brand new archetype almost of a deck. Certainly it plays into some old stuff as well, but doing a lot of really new stuff, and then like the return of Handlock, which hasn't really been around for a long time as far as like a meta sense. It's been quite some time, I think, since like a true Handlock was up there, beating people's brains in, making people sad. So really glad to see that. You love to see a deck that's making people sad. But yeah, let's take a look at our deck list here, and let's get into our next match.
All right, so we see Nuff here with 973 games and a 60% win rate, going 4-1 in the Swiss, all very respectable. And also respectable, Hornisa as the favorite card, an old classic, although we haven't seen it receiving much play in a long time. And for the lists, we have this Japan-Soviet aggro deck that we all love so much on ladder. The rushes really provide incredibly early answers that can really put even other fast decks on the back foot, like Legions, for example. And then next up, we have this German-US ramp and 1-2-3s list. 1-2-3s drawing 2 cards with the Bergman, incredibly powerful stuff. And then into being able to print credits with the Michigans, and there's a lot of different ways to end the game. I've seen people get 3 copies of Maus on the board. I've seen people attack with 4 Comets in one turn. Once you get this ramp out, you really have a lot of options, but the issue is surviving long enough to do those things. Next up, we have Commandos. This list is looking pretty standard. There's been a lot of different experimentation with this list. This is pretty close to what I think most people have landed on for the Commandos list. A couple copies of Dilemma as some good answers fairly early on. But of course leaving the unit on the board, which can sometimes be an issue against decks such as Burn. And finally, we have the most unique list of this lineup, which is a US-Finland mid-range list, trying to take advantage of Lotusfard, which with a lot of these US and Finnish tanks, to really get a lot of value on the credits, and Alabama as a possibility for draws that can really close out a game quickly, much in a similar style to Blitzkrieg in the more traditional US Germany frontline.
Excellent. Let's take a look at his opponent. We see C with a 902 matches, 631 wins for a really impressive 70% win rate. 4-1, certainly nothing to scoff at. And I think I speak for Red Sun and some of our other Japanese-minded players that we miss Shiden. Great to see Shiden as a favorite card. Certainly something that Japan is maybe missing, but that reign of terror finally ended. Looking at the decks here, we see the Japan-Soviet aggro deck that we have seen almost every player bring so far. Shout out to a single copy of Aichi, definitely making this one just a little bit different. Doesn't believe in it too much, then he might have taken two, or, you know, maybe just a splash, but a very interesting splash indeed. And then we flip to a Soviet Japan list. And here we see more of a, you know, certainly another interesting list here. We actually see Tomahawk, a card that hasn't been brought in quite some time. So that, again, super interesting. But we see Rush in both of these decks. As you said, super early value on that. Can sometimes be super late value as well. Obviously, positioning your opponent to only have one unit allows you to do 5 damage to that unit for only 1 credit. Not too hard to pull off and very devastating. We move on to Germany, Japan, and this is really interesting here that we have maybe our first burn deck of the day. We have some naval burn with Bismarck, with Tirpitz, and of course the new 2nd Marine Division. And then moving on to our last deck, we have a Britain USA Commandos. And not much to notice here. Both players bringing a Commandos deck, but slight differences. I believe a Second Chance was in Nuff's deck. C obviously not taking that, so, you know, just a couple of very tiny slot differences. We'll see if those come into play. And on a greater scale, C completely foregoing the 1-2-3, that new extremely powerful card, as I kind of alluded to, almost a new archetype or way to think about the game or even play the game with all of the converting and unit sort of toggling and moving around. So C not bringing that, not really jiving with that so far, and we'll see if that ends up with him, you know, making an early exit or perhaps, you know, going over all those 1-2-3 decks. All right,
Both
and
players have banned this Japan Soviet deck. And I can't say it's too surprising given the fact that so many players are bringing this Japan Soviet deck. It is clearly being appraised as one of the best decks in the game by these players, if not the best deck in the game. And it really can cause some issues for these slightly slower decks that, you know, might not have the time to get a guard up against a rush. That can really put you on the back foot early on. And you don't want to lose on turn 4 in this kind of tournament.
yeah, absolutely. And really interesting here that, you know, we say you very astutely pointed out how big of an impact and difference a lot of this new tech and new cards are making. But here we see what is essentially, right, a new Jagro, certainly new, but kind of back to a Japanese aggro. It goes quick, it goes hard, it hurts you. Not much time to make responses, and you know, it says as much as things change, they stay the same. What's really interesting as well is that C is sort of bringing an attempt at the inverse of the list with his Soviet deck. So maybe that's the right call if this meta is truly getting, you know, ruled, or not ruled, but like is in a place where people are banning a Japanese aggro list. Then perhaps trying to formulate that list in an inverse is a very powerful call. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I would say the main weakness is you don't get to run expansion. Well, you can, but it's a lot harder to, and it's a lot less consistent, and it's taking up those precious 12 Japanese slots. It makes for a less consistent version of the list. You can do about all the same number of powerful things, but you just aren't going to hit the really efficiently costed draw as often.
And that can be so important to getting you to where you need to go. We see Nuff going with his Commandos deck first. Actually, is this both players going with their Commando deck first?
Yes,
This is
it is.
Crown versus Crown. So a Mando's mirror, exactly what we all wanted to see. I know I talked to as many people as I could, and they were telling me how awesome his Commandos are. Fun to play, fun to watch. Everybody loves them. This is not a facetious comment.
So I do actually want to play devil's advocate a little bit here. I think this is I think the Commandos mirror matchup is often a lot more interesting than, Commandos versus some other, aggro mid-range deck,
It's a great
because
point.
there is a lot to consider in the way that the first person to try and go off with their Commandos opens themselves up to having their Commandos removed by your opponent's Commandos.
Bit of a fencing match, bit of a duel, perhaps a gunslinger's duel. Someone's got to pull first.
Yeah, but of course you can't wait forever because there are not only hand size issues, but Commandos will get to the point where they will just deal 20 damage to you in one turn from hand. And you obviously don't want to allow that to happen.
We see here Nuff finding 2 war machines, so is threatening to pull away in the ramp battle, but see top decking one. Thinking about America at war to perhaps curve out better, but not going
Yeah,
to get the draw on that. How do you feel about that?
well, America at War allows you to play Convoy and War Machine next turn. Is that better than playing the War Machine here and just America at War draw 1 card next turn? I think it, you know, depends a lot on how much more card draw is on top of the deck for Psy, which obviously nobody knows.
That sounds better. I'm converting to that instantly. Really interesting how long our players are taking to. Nuff has been, even in his mulligan and now in his turns, is definitely fully utilizing the turn clock, which I think is smart. This is, like you said, going to be a real chess match with how these commandos are played. Does draw a commando. I don't think that we're going to see one yet. I imagine we're going to see the turn that you prescribed earlier, which is going to be the convoy. See what we draw. Of course, we don't draw last. And then we chuck in our war machine. Or, or it's an early Rangers.
That seems crazy to me.
I would classify it as bizarre at the very least, but let's let him cook.
It seems like you're really, opening up a vulnerability. Really, uh, you know, pushing up your pawn while your king's under attack. I don't know. That doesn't really work as a comparison,
I
I
liked
don't
it.
think. But
We've
the
been very analogy
duress,
heavy so far. It's good.
yeah, the duress. Your opponent runs 2 of them, and if they have it, they're just gonna rip it on this Rangers.
Yeah,
You
it
gotta know that.
certainly needs to get suppressed. Is there a point? I mean, it's 0 cost, so I guess who cares? But like, yeah, I mean, it's 0 cost. Hand size is an issue. Yeah, you just rip it. There's really no point in. There's really nothing to wait for. We go right
Yeah,
into war bonds. We're winning the ramp battle if we're enough here a little bit.
the reason to hold it is just that it's a 0 cost order, and that has a lot of value in commandos. But I think the risk of your opponent playing a commando raid and just dealing a ton of damage to you is way too high to ever not duress the Rangers as soon as possible.
Fortification seems silly here. Monty seems kind of silly as well. I would definitely consider the MI5. Yeah, really thought about that for uh, Psy. I was like, Psy, see, I was panicking there.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, honestly, to see the convoy instead of the MI5 here. And the reason I say that is just that, when you're playing convoy and you have 4 credits left, you're not really playing the last, 1 credit card, at least not in size position here. Whereas with the MI5, it's denying your opponent options when they have 9 credits. Well, denying your opponent 1 option. And so I would have thought that would have a little more value than, you seeing 1 more option at the start of your following turn.
Do you think the war bonds played into that? Because with war bonds drawing 2 for enough, MI5 of course is only really putting the 1 back, so they are still getting 1 draw. Do you feel that so obviously Sai felt that was bad, right? He felt that was not the right move. But do you think that makes that the right move, or is that sort of more irrelevant?
I don't. In my opinion, I don't think it really changes the situation, because it's still it. Okay, it changes it a little bit, but it's still 1 card, whichever way you slice it, that
Right.
your opponent's not seeing. Now, stopping your opponent from seeing 1 card, when they have 2 cards in hand versus when they're going to have 8 cards in hand, it does matter in the sense that if your opponent has more other options to look at, it's less likely that that 1 additional card is going to be the key piece that makes their turn significantly better. So yeah, it does definitely impact the situation a little bit.
You feel like it's sort of a vibes play, it feels too bad to not completely deny draw with an MI5 for the turn.
Sure.
But I feel, as you said, that is a little bit of fool's gold. Running right into the convoy. Of course, this new protected convoy card is so stupid good for commandos. You're only carrying a single card, but it is for some reason 3 different orders for your commandos to proc, one of which doesn't cost anything. And of course, is ramp, which is ridiculous and also enables your wave after wave if you're truly in a bind. Truly a new golden age for commandos because of this card.
Now, Nuff is way up on ramp, although Psy is way up on draw. And Nuff, he really needs to find, a convoy or something similar next turn if he wants to stay in this game. And I think that's Psy's 4th convoy.
Once he finds one, boy, Nuff is going to get rolling. 13 credits a turn. We've ramped up so high, and we're holding on to those 2 disposable credits as well from those productions. Rangers in hand. He's ready to go. He just might not ever survive till he finds a commando. Yeah, no, this is
just lethal.
Yep. Cup of tea will finish it out. Nothing random about those pings, buddy.
No.
That was rather bad, unfortunately, for Nuff. So our commandos mirror tidy and out of the way goes to Psy. Where do you think Nuff goes from here? I don't think that you want to really hard stick commandos in either of these 2 next matchups.
Yeah, against these really fast hyper aggro decks, I think Commandos is just not it. And Commandos are particularly bad against recons, which is a key draw engine in these decks. Commandos is okay against burn. I think that's about a 50-50 matchup.
Yeah, I think that's the best that Nuff is going to have to hope for to make it through this this set here. just a moment as our spectator catches up.
And we do get that matchup. I would say that Burn and Commandos tend to kill the opponent at similar times.
Yeah, sort of right around the end of the credit curve, sometime around 12, it feels. A lot of times maybe doesn't stay too late after that. Of course, we saw it was only turn 8 or turn 9, and 13 credits, enough's name, but not enough to get him anywhere.
Yeah, there is quite a lot of variability in, you know, the burn deck really wants to find these FWs to sort of artificially ramp by adding the productions into hand to get ahead, whereas for Commandos, you just want, the traditional ramp cards like the War Machine. And both players have found those tools, so both are right on track for their game plans.
Early Bismarck might not be too bad, as you can see Sai already with some naval cards. Actually going to Makura his own plane, his own Arado, just to get that ramp started. Makura going to replace itself as it always does. So it doesn't really cost him anything except for maybe a damage next turn to Alexandria. Seems like
Yeah,
a easy price to pay.
and it'd be high risk to not play Mikura as well, because then, you have a higher chance of drawing a Mercura next turn, the turn after
True.
that,
An old
and yeah,
Chocolate Boys Gambit.
exactly.
Ooh,
Ooh,
and the early
Shibata.
Shibata. Yeah, both of us oohing instantly as the kind of impact on this particular matchup that card can have. Certainly enough sitting on a deck that just plays orders. That's all it does, baby. It's an order playing deck. So that is going to have to be dealt with in some sort of fashion, or it's going to cause a lot of grief. And when you're playing Burn, you can't really cause yourself any extra grief.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you've got to just play a commando raid, use a production, play a 4 freedom. It's you do get cleared out by crossfire, which is very scary. And you're taking a lot of damage from the Shibata, but you don't have a duress to just quickly answer the Shibata, which is usually what you hope for in this matchup to happen.
Of course, see that crossfire is there in Sai's hand, locked and loaded. Big turn, enough considering a lot of angles here. And I think we maybe somehow didn't make enough of a big deal about how much that mirror match meant, because obviously whoever won was winning with their commandos. That's how a commandos mirror match goes. But then just as important, perhaps more important, is that other player then has, not really great favorable matchups to win with their commandos that they're left with. And of course, with this being bring 4 ban 1, if it's not banned, it's got to win. It's got to find one.
Yeah.
Haven't even found a naval, by the way, for Sai. This hasn't been any kind of unit-based burn or any kind of fancy burn. This is just Shibata pings, little plane pings.
Now we see the Baker Street come out. Baker Street last game for Sai found that big commando, which just about single-handedly took out Nuff. But Nuff sort of hitting a bit of a low roll on his options. The number 9 commando is a pretty good card, but it is just not very powerful here. and yet we see it played out anyways because that is the level of desperation Nuff is under.
But he's happy to hit that Shibata. Now, I would imagine, yeah, we're going to start with Blitzbomb. We're certainly going to draw. And we may just go right into Admiral Hipper unless we draw like Navy. Well, okay, we drew second Marine. So
Well, with second Marine, you can second Marine Makura, and then you have
right.
3 productions with your 7 credits next turn, which obviously adds to 10, and then Bismarck just takes your opponent out.
Yep, so we don't, perhaps doesn't see the line. U16 really strange here for me. I think that I mean, I guess what he's hoping for, right, is he's hoping to play second Marine and some naval cards in the same turn. Second naval card in the turn, really using some of his burn activators and not going to generate a second production. But as you said,
I do
7, 8,
suppose
9, 10, we're going to
your
Bismarck.
opponent's still down to 8, and Bismarck did get buffed by 1 damage to do 8, so your opponent still has to use some form of healing here to stay alive.
Yeah, radar is available, and they know that they have the ramp. So it's going to have to be if they see this and if they call it out. If not, Sai is going to take a very commanding 2-0 lead here in the set. And Nuff is going to be stuck on these Commandos. As we said, Burn was probably Commando's best bet. So this feels final as far as the prognosticating this set if Sai wins. Just matchup wise, a tough road.
Yeah, it's certainly not unwinnable, but it's not where you want to be by any means.
All right, radar. He sees it. He knows. Don't get me wrong. It's delaying the inevitable, possibly, unless he can really find. It'd be one thing if he was able to ramp up and maybe could have a good bit of money by this point and lay down a whopper turn, but it doesn't feel like that's going to be it.
Now that Bismarck isn't lethal, at least for a couple of turns, I think you could have thought about playing the second Marines and using these productions for the Admiral Hipper to slow your opponent down a little bit. Just for the reason that, you're one-off lethal anyways. And so you're already
Bismarck is a naval
while.
card, right? So with second Marine down, Bismarck will do 11.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I guess I'm thinking, like, how does
So
the
it's- I get-
second Marine survive this turn when your opponent
I was
has
gonna
this many
say-
cards?
Yeah, to your point. Also, the duress in hand, right? And you haven't really seen the duresses, and you gotta figure that Nuff has picked one up by now, so you gotta figure you are probably getting duressed. But
Okay. I don't really understand enough targeting the HQ with the Commando raid, because your opponent's at so much life. It's not like you're ever going to kill them before the second Marines dies.
I guess the thought there was legitimately just I'm silencing the naval unit, so I don't care about killing it. I mean, obviously I do because then my pings are going face, but like if I can throw a ping out to face, then that's fine because it's more about getting the ability off the naval than anything else. But as you've said here, sorry, but as you've said here, just the math here with 9 not being 8, you know what I mean? It's really tough.
The consideration might have been that you actually don't want to kill the second Marine too fast because you want to play the duress for 3 damage.
And I was thinking about this play specifically, hippering his own, gets the productions, throws it right back down, gets the Makura, which is gonna give him the proc, and now we're in Bismarck range. And now we also have just the proper amount of production, turn 9+1 to get us into Bismarck range. A perfect play by Sai. Can he survive long enough to pull it off?
He might not need to survive if he can kill his opponent. It's It's far from impossible here. You need to find some protected convoys, though.
Enough taking his time, really
It's
thinking
it's
this turn
20
out.
damage. 20 damage is a lot to shoot through. Because realistically, you're not, hitting the face enough before, these units die.
Just that second chance that I mentioned, the difference in the commando decks. I don't feel like you see second chance a lot. It's targeted draw, so you're going to pay that extra credit, 4 instead of 3.
Protected convoy is huge.
Protected convoy is huge. We're down
Oh,
to
brings him to 2.
2, and unfortunately, he has it. What a game. The margins are slim, and now Nuff's margin for error for the set is even slimmer.
Just a single additional 1-cost card for Nuff gives him that game, puts it into a 1-1 instead of this 2-0.
And you know what costs 1 credit? Second
What's
chance
that?
over convoy. That was regular draw. Who knows?
Well, yeah, the final card, the final 2 cards drawn, I believe, were Commando Raid and War Bonds, which were,
Too
just some of the
expensive
worst
regardless.
hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1 credit, probably not, as you are astutely pointing out right now. But of course, once the second chance is replaced with the convoy, the algorithm's different. The world, the planets have aligned differently.
Yeah, I'm not sure which
Mercury
one.
then in retrograde.
I'm not sure which one technically has the higher odds. Um, I think it's probably pretty close. I wouldn't fault a player for going for either of those lines.
How many raw units are in commandos right now? You're just your 3 commandos, your rangers.
Yeah, usually that's it. Sometimes you can run some number 9 or
Or
which
yeah,
number is
number
it?
9.
Yeah, the 1-1 commando.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think either of our players here are doing that though. Nuff just sticking with the commandos,
Yeah, it's a live
and
or
that
die.
is a brutal hand, as in brutal for Nuff that Sai's hand has Shibata, has a recon already, a scouting party. These are precisely the cards you want into this matchup.
Some draw to boot. A Kyoto is going to take an early commando for itself for a little while. Gonna throw a commando on a mandatory vacation for a bit. The ramp on turn 2 though.
Now this Colm, it's nice to have Colm early game. It's a lot of pressure. At the same time, Sai doesn't really see anything in hand to play now that you have 2 credits instead of 3. So it does come at a big cost.
I will say though, for this matchup in particular, getting 3 health on a 1-drop, that's that can be very helpful in your commando soak.
Yeah, the health on your units is almost, the same thing as health on your HQ against commandos. Um, until you get to like the late game where you're already on like 3 or 4 health and you play a 6 health guy, then it's not the same. But when you have 20 health and you play out a 6 health guy, the 6 health guy is going to, take up that damage first.
Yeah, anything to muddy the waters. Early commando, we got to figure, we got to see something here along the lines of, oh, dilemma, very interesting. Does not cup of tea I understand it's not cup of tea. Of course, you're trying to save it for when you have more than one commando, but you're playing a Soviet main player. You know they got 4 sickles. Of course, they've got one at the ready. That's going to be the easiest commando trade out of all time. And it really does look now, as we're sitting here, that this match was decided at our commandos mirror. That we went into this, both players picked commandos. The chess match began, and unfortunately for Nuff, it seems as though that losing that might have meant losing everything.
I do want to bring up these are both of Sai's Shibatas. You know, he's not Japan main. He only
Ooh.
has 2 of them.
That is a great point, unless you're Nuff.
And that is, you know, really frustrating
2 damage
from
just
Nuff's
for the
side
raid.
of the table.
2 more damage. And then just 1. It's like them old Shibatas hit different. Ooh, the counteroffensive?
Yes,
Not
sir.
quite. Not quite.
Wait.
'Cause
Oh, yeah, because you can't winter warfare first, because it'll kill your unit.
but man, close.
Very, very close, indeed.
So we got to think here what we do otherwise. Perhaps, yeah, I was gonna say I was thinking of Kyoto right away. Get rid of one of these bad boys. Might come right back out the way that Nuff is going to have a wave after wave at the ready. We'll see if he pulls that. Really would like to get rid of that second Shibata. No, not have to worry about Shibatas for the rest of the game.
Yeah, you can play this British research to add a radar, then wave after wave, and then play that radar. Looks like what we're going to get here. And, you know, this, you know, is a very difficult position for Nuff. There's a lot of burst potential from Sai's deck, but he doesn't have the credits yet to do it. Nuff has all the credits in the world once these war bonds comes down.
Absolutely. The path before him is set. If he can get some timely bad draws from Sai. And another really, really great card for this matchup. That 1/5, of course, as we said, huge health total for a cheap unit to suck some of that damage up from the commandos, but also going to get buffs as it gets bigger. Truly the thorn in the side of the commando player. You love to see it.
There's multiple reasonable options here for Nuff. You can play the war bonds and the war machine, even maybe playing Cup of Tea. And that gets you, you know, quite a bit of pings this turn and ramps you up for the next turn. But getting the Rangers down also has some immediate value and denies 1 draw on the recon, but I suppose it doesn't really matter because if you deal the 2 damage 1 at a time, then there's an overdraw here. This is
was a second rush, which is a big deal because a second rush would have been to get to 2 units dead, but you don't need to kill units when you can kill a man. And we're going to see Sai move on in a very quick sweep of Nuff.
Yeah, and Sai at the end there, he did have both those cards for a while. I do think that might have been one of the few card combinations to actually do it, because the damage from the Winter Warfare was also required. His opponent was at 9, not at 8. So something like a sickle would not have been lethal there.
Yeah, everything about that match, right? Not even just about that game, everything about that match, all of the margins were crazy thin. The Commandos versus Burn coming down to just, you know, slithers of health on either side. So really, really impressive match for both those players, and definitely excited to see how Sai does tomorrow as he moves on. And no 1-2-3 shenanigans in that match at all. So we'll have to see if the shenanigans from our first match continue in our next two, as that card certainly is weighing large in this new meta.
Yeah, and congratulations to Sai. He's been to a few of these tournaments before. This is the first time for him entering the semifinals. So I'm sure that is a great relief to him to finally make it on to the second round.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and take a look at our bracket and kind of get ready for our next matches. We have Siswinder and 66 Better coming up. So we are going to throw you to J King and Bubbles, and they are going to take us through our next match.
Hello, welcome back to the handsome casters. Of course, me and JK. Yeah, we're going to be taking you through 66 Better versus SYS. It's going to be a good time. Not going to spend too long. But before we go into it, what do you think of that series we just watched?
It was very different than the series that we cast, the first series of the day, where it was best of 5, almost a reverse sweep, just 3-0 domination from Sai. And honestly, it's about time. Sai has been in every single expansion tournament top 8, and the first 2 fell in the first round. So finally being able to get there. But Nuff is sort of now in the same place Sai is in, because Nuff lost in the first round of the previous expansion tournament as well. So now Nuff has lost in the first round of 2 back-to-back expansion tournament top 8s. And that sucks, because it's an effort to get into the expansion tournament. It's an effort to get through the Swiss round into the top 8. And then you lose 3-0 on stream. That's not going to feel good, but it's important to remember how much Nuff did accomplish and how many games Nuff did have to win to make it to that point, where just the smallest of margins decided basically all 3 of those games.
Yeah, and I mean, they've proven themselves now as someone who is capable of doing it. I have no reason to doubt they will prove themselves yet again, come back yet again, and give it another try. But it's always difficult when you put in a lot of work and then you have a difficult series straight away in your first series. But let's move on to the next one. We're going to be looking at 66 Better versus SYS, and we're going to start with 66 Better's decks. Oh, sorry, we're going to start with SYS's decks. There you go. Most played Japan. Favorite card Skytrain, an old classic. The Jasco Printer, as it's fondly known. 1,000 matches with a fantastic 64% win rate and a pretty good Swiss record with 4-1. We've seen a lot of players with 3-2. 5-0 we did see earlier, but 4-1 is a pretty impressive set of records for the Swiss. Let's see what decks they've equipped themselves with today. We have this Japan Soviet aggro deck, very popular, very quick moving. For a long time, Germany was the traditional ally of Jaggro decks, with things like 22 infantry to generate more draw, and more importantly, 35T to do a huge amount of tempo and damage early on. But we see now the Soviets have taken up the mantle and become the new ally for Japan. They have these new aggressive units with the Colm. It's just such a good 1-drop. Arguably the best turn 1, that you can do in an aggro deck at the moment, putting this unit into the front line. And then they also have Rush. This is sort of taking the place of your way of dealing with big units. Commit the Reserves was a really popular card not too long ago. And with these 4 copies of Rush, you don't really need it anymore, as you are able to just clear through these guards and then use things like the 33rd Recon to get some draw back in return for that. We then see a Germany-Japan Navy burn deck. This is quite a popular deck at the moment. It's not quite as popular as things like sort of Commandos or Legions, but it's sort of trailing them close by, and it's a pretty powerful mid-range deck. It's got some very powerful 1-drops. You've got things like the FW, which is good at trading with 3 defense and obviously ramps you up. And then you've got things like this Shibata, which are just really powerful at the moment, able to trade away with a good chunk of 1-drops, but also tax and burn, not just these Commando decks, but also these Legion decks. And then obviously in the mid game, you've got this great burn package. We do see the 4 copies of Gifu here, which is going to generate some extra value and just make it slightly more difficult to play the long game against this deck. We then have the Soviet Japan aggro deck, but more of a counter-offensive package here, a slightly slower version, I'd say, than the Japan main, because you don't have quite as many scary one-drops as you can pack when you're running Japan. So slightly slower, but it is able to do a lot more burst damage from hand. We saw 9 HP from hand being done last game, and especially with these counter-offensive, you can do a ridiculous amount of damage straight from hand. We do see the BM13 in here, which is interesting. Acts a little bit like Comet, but it is easier to deal with. However, if your opponent isn't able to bounce it, you do get repeatable damage at 1 credit a turn. I'm slightly surprised to see this being popular, especially with the other decks we have floating around. You know, Comet can be quite good at finishing off a Commandos deck if you've got the sustain to not die to the Commando pings. But BM13 is not quite as good as that, because it will just die. It will just get hit by Commando pings and wither away. We then see the, speak of the devil, we have a Commando deck here on the end. One of the most popular decks at the moment. It's just such a powerful deck. It can really curve out quicker than anything else. If you've got this sort of war machine into war bonds, you've got these credits, and you also have card advantage. It can sort of keep pace with some of these aggro decks, even though it's a sort of combo deck. But it also does have this longevity. It is able to burn out your opponent in the late game. You put down a Rangers, you put down a couple Commandos, and you're able to start doing like 15 damage a turn and really just burn your opponent out of nowhere. We do see some text in here for the mirror. We see the Commando deck bring in the Black Watch, and we also see the Carpet Bomb in here, which is slightly more unusual, but I'm hoping this deck makes it through, so we get to see how these cards work out. But that is SYS decks, and now J King is going to take you through 66 better.
All right, so 66 better with 1,719 matches at a 71% win rate. I believe this is the most matches we've seen, and I believe this is the highest win rate we've seen. And those in combination together are very, very scary. Now, Swiss record 3-2, not as impressive as SYS's 4-1, or of course UIO's 5-0, but as we've seen, Swiss round does not mean everything, as the 5-0 player is eliminated, so 66 better is here to prove it. And it's not that surprising that 66 better has this many wins and this many total games, because 66 better is probably the most veteran player in this entire event, despite the fact that this is their first top 8 in an expansion tournament. So 66 better is definitely here to win it, and let's take a look at the decks that they're bringing to do so. Now, 66 Better's lineup is about as close as we have to a control lineup for this event. Despite that, their first deck is, of course, Japan Soviet Aggro. This is one of the most popular decks of the event. 6 out of the 8 players brought it. And of course, this deck, I'm not going to go over everything, but you've got some Shibatas as anti-commando tech, and just a lot of one-drops. In particular, the Colm and Rush in combination together are very good at taking out, putting on pressure early, and removing any units that might try to trade you out early. And then on the later end, you try to clear out the game with cards like Shinano or the SU to burn out the opponent and Akagi to refill hands. The deck that I want to spend a bit more time talking about, though, is this Soviet deck, because Japan's Soviet Aggro, most popular deck of the tournament, six players have brought it. Soviet Japan Aggro is also the most popular deck of the tournament, with 6 players bringing it, and was not particularly popular in the round of 32, but that's because in this round you have to bring 4 decks from 4 different nations, so a lot of people said, you know what, Soviet Japan, that's the way to go. 66 Better says, you know what, I'm going old school, we're bringing Soviet control, and not Soviet Italy, we're going real old school. He's bringing a Soviet Britain control deck. Now, despite that being somewhat old school, this deck has a fair amount of new cards in here. You've got the Protected Convoys, of course, just to curve out a little bit better, adding the productions to your hand. Very, very good. But if you look at the contents of the deck, it's attempting to be a bit of a meta counter, I think. You've got the extended barrages, you've got the hammers in there. These are going to be able to clear out the 3/6s, the 4/5s, the Gifus, and the Marines from a burn deck. You've got the Chaika. This is going to stop any sort of bomber nonsense. You've got a whole bunch of sickles to deal with the aggro decks. You've got Colm, despite this being very much a control deck, but Colm is just going to be trading out with the aggro units early plays. You've got a cavalry regiment in there, the 60th Cavalry Regiment. That's the one that prevents 2 orders from being played in the same turn. So that's a bit of commando tech. And then at the top end, you just have what you would expect with a whole bunch of Soviet elites and a fortification and a convoy and first responders, Black Watch, sort of filling out the curve with the British cards. So this is sort of a anti-meta deck of sorts. And then moving on, third deck, it is Germany-US, another very popular deck, and another very high skill cap deck. So it's not that surprising to see 66 Better, who is probably the most veteran player in this event, coming in with what I would say is the highest skill cap deck. Almost certainly going to show us some crazy plays on this deck, I'm sure. And again, it's just you've got a bit of ramp going on, and then you try to use 1-2-3s with a number of different very powerful combinations with different units to make some big swinging plays, and potentially just fully OTK your opponent with Comet and Shifting Attack. We've yet to see that in this tournament, but it happens a fair amount, so it wouldn't be too surprising to see if we see this deck come out. And then last but not least, we have a Britain deck, but this is going to be a Britain-German handlock, no commandos here. So this deck is all about turning all of your opponent's units into routed troops and then putting those routed troops on top of their deck so that they don't draw cards. So this is just a full control deck. It's able to get sort of thrown off in the early game if they don't find those 3 copies of route, but if they can hit a turning point, suddenly everything's going to be coming down with guard, everything's going to be putting routed troops on top of your deck, and there's 2 fortifications to help close out a game by getting out of burn range from a number of the different burn decks going on in the meta. So again, Japan, Soviet aggro, and then 3 quasi-control decks here for 66 Better, so we'll see how that matches up into SYS.
So I have 2 things I want to bring up. With 2 1-2-3s and a Comet with a Shifting Attack, I believe that's 12 credits for 24 damage.
It sure is.
Which is a lot of damage, but then also looking at 66 Better's number of games, and we'll talk about these bans in just a second. 2 of our players today have more than 1,200 wins. The other 6 players have less than 1,200 total matches. These 2 players, 66 Better and Last Man, who you guys will see in a little bit, have 1,215 wins and 1,246 wins. The player with the most games below this has 1,202 games total. So these 2 players, each individually, have more wins than any other player has on matches at all this season. So these players have so much more experience than them. But I apologize. Went over the bans there. Jaking, just give us a quick rundown of the bans, as I was distracting us with some stats there, and then we'll get into this matchup here.
All right, so 66 Better banned SYS's German-Japan burn deck, and SYS banned 66 Better's Japan-Soviet aggro deck. So I'm a little surprised to see 66 Better ban the burn deck. I suppose he's just a little worried about the power of burn into his slower control decks not being able to clear up second as easily, but he's got some fortifications in those decks. He's got Hammer and Extended Barrage in the Soviet deck. I would have thought burn is one of the matches that he is teching around to beat, but apparently not.
Do you think these 4 Gifus have anything to do with it, saying actually maybe this burn deck can just out-endure me and just go long game with these 4 Gifus, and I'm not going to be able to keep up with it?
Yeah, that definitely could be part of it. That is the trouble of building a 4-deck lineup, is it's very difficult to bring 4 decks that are very good into one specific deck, especially when that specific deck is a tier 1 meta deck. They're tier 1 meta decks for a reason. So sometimes you just sort of have to accept that you're going to have some good matchups, some bad matchups, and you're going to have to ban a deck that might have some good matchups, but it's also possible that he's very worried about other matchups.
Blackwatch is going to be huge. SYS does have a large amount of credit, so they are going to work around it a little bit, but it's still such a big hit. Turn 4 Blackwatch coming out and just taxing each order you play by 2 extra credits.
And I believe this is the 3rd turn 3 war bonds of this tournament we have seen. That's insane.
A lot of war bonds.
Really giving us a statement here on how to mulligan with these commando decks.
Just find the good cards.
Now, SYS's Commandos deck is quite different than any of the other Commando decks we've seen in this tournament. It's got a bit more of a control angle to it with these Fusiliers, and we can see in the hand a Carpet Bombing and a Fortification.
And 2 Black Watches in this deck, prepared for the mirror as well with these double Black Watches. There's also the possibility this Black Watch is meant to slow down Legions a little bit, just to buy you more time to find the tools you need to just obliterate your opponent in a single turn.
Yeah, it is interesting. We've seen a lot of players bring a fair amount of anti-commando tech, but by my count, I think there's only actually 4 commando decks. Only half the field brought commandos to this event, despite how much anti-commando cards there are.
I think it's often the way, though, when everyone is so focused on beating a deck, a lot of players reach the conclusion that, well, then I won't bring this deck. Especially if there's strong alternatives. If you expect commandos to be hard countered, and there's something like this Brit-Germany deck, which is fairly powerful, it becomes very tempting to then go for this second option. Obviously, if there's no other British decks, then you're much more tempted to just lean into that commando deck fully. But when there's an alternative, and we expect a deck to get countered, it's pretty common, I think, for people to try and sort of divert their lineup. Holding back the hammer for now, just going to move up to the front line.
And I like keeping
Zhukov
this Black
unit.
Watch back. It can put out a lot of damage if it goes unanswered, but your opponent doesn't really have a great way of answering it if you just leave it in your support line.
Yeah, I definitely think in this matchup at least, holding it back is the move. Just trying to brick your opponent's hand as much as possible. And there are ways of making this slightly worse for your opponent. I believe there's the second Black Watch in the deck. If we find the second Black Watch, that is really difficult for SYS to deal with. But also, if we find victory banners, the game is over. You know, if this whole board is turned into Black Watches, there is almost nothing. I mean, a lot of it's going to be set back now.
That's a great play by SYS.
But still,
Ordering
threats
correctly with the
are...
Fusiliers clears the board up a fair amount.
Threats still are on board, so the carpet bombing is most likely going to have to come out as well. 66 better may just use this to draw some cards and start trying to find the next wave. Considering going for the plan over the convoy here.
That convoy draw is actually very good from 66 better. It's the only convoy in the deck, and he does
KV.
Those won't find anything.
KV's a pretty significant find here. I expect we'll see the carpet bomb come out and then a convoy to follow up this turn. But if SYS instead decides to go for this fortification, may end up being punished by the KV.
And it is actually worth noting out, SYS has 3 copies of Duress in his deck. So, the victory banner is picked up.
There he is! I gotta say, Victory Banners has been my favorite card of the expansion. The ability to transform both your or your opponent's board into just something completely unexpected. My favorite Victory March moments have never been ones I foresaw coming until the turn I played it.
Now 66 better has British Ally, doesn't have carpet bombing, so the only real board clear in the deck is strategic focus. I mean, victory banners can be a board clear depending on the situation. Not going to be particularly useful against commandos. So with this commando night raid, and then I'd love to see these. I mean, I suppose you can start with a fortification, and then go for these 2 for freedoms. Try to limit the burn you're taking.
Versus this board of commandos, the most you can use Victory Banner for is removing Cup of Tea, just to allow them to be removed by things like Bloody Sickle and Winter Warfare, but it's really not an ideal scenario. But look at this damage you're taking here.
He splits up the buffs, that's good. Protected Convoy is a huge top deck. These commandos just refuse to hit this KV. There they go.
Gonna get the fortification out. I expect now we'll see the board get wiped. However, there is the then follow-up commando raids.
Yeah, this is... I played before the tournament a couple days ago once the decks were posted. Thanatron and I looked at 66 better Soviet Britain deck and were like, this is spicy, we gotta play this. And we played, I think, close to a dozen games on this Soviet Britain deck against the sort of field of meta decks that other players brought to this tournament, and the Soviet deck lost every single game. So, and most of them were not
Oh.
particularly close. So
Okay,
I'm a
what you're
little
telling
worried.
me is that I assume you were playing the Soviet deck.
Thanatron was on the Soviet deck.
Well, there's your answer. No, I'm kidding. I think I think it's most likely when you brew decks like this, it is far more difficult for other players to pick it up and just play with it. I do think that's a factor.
I mean, that
These
could be a
more
factor,
unusual
but
decks.
looking
But
at these
also-
hands right now, I'd much rather be SYS.
That is true. That is true.
I mean, he doesn't have a cup of tea for these Commander raids. I'm curious if he's just tried to set up like a Commander raid OTK. Maybe try to wait till he finds the Rangers if he's afraid of something like Sickles clearing up the board. Because he's dropping orders and holding on to these 2 Commander raids. And the second Blackwatch find is big, but now there's the Duress.
I have such a soft spot for Soviet Brits that I cannot accept that the deck is the problem.
And
It's
is he gonna
just
hold on to Blackwatch to do Blackwatch victory banners on the following turn? Even if it gets Duressed, if the Kyber bombing doesn't come out to clear up these units, victory banners will unsuppress the unit and also turn everything else into non-suppressed versions of it.
However, if the carpet bomb comes out, that's 2 less copies of Blackwatch available on the board. And 2 Blackwatches is alright, but 4 Blackwatches is game ending.
Yeah, and even if he drops a Kyber bombing, there's the possibility of finding another Colm off the top. And if that's the case, then that's up to 3 Blackwatches. And there's probably no coming back from that with Wave gone.
Well, we've got Sickle as well. We can do a little bit of drawing. I expect...
The Commando takes out the 5th Brigade. That's massive.
That is huge. It's such a big setback. Tractor factories
okay.
might just be the best option. Get loads of stats down on board. Chuck down the tractor factories. And I would consider bloating this countermeasure, because you're not going to be able to hit face with any of these tractors anyway.
Yeah, just get more units onto the board. If Blackwatch sticks, you can turn them all into Blackwatch, and that's how you win the game. Like, if you can make 4 Blackwatches here, you just win. It's just over.
And I mean, there's a lot on the line here. Thanatron's integrity as a player is on the line.
If 66 Better is able to win a single game on this Soviet deck, it means Thanatron is washed.
Oh, when he gets the cast to get after us, and I feel like there's gonna be some brutal words said about us.
With the way the schedule's set up, he gets the last say here.
He gets the last word.
SYS has 2 Commander raids and 15 credits, and he knows the strategic focus is gone. He could just go in.
Okay, 29 health on the HQ, 10 health on the T-34s, 3 health on the Blackwatch.
No Rangers, though. And
42 total defense. Let's see how much of it is eaten away this turn.
Baker Streets?
He's going to be looking for the protected convoy.
Majesty's Chosen could be potentially big value generation down the line. There's no cup of teas in this deck, so the Sickles are going to be able to do stuff. But the Blackwatch is dead, so there's no more worries of any more Blackwatches this game. T-34 is dead. Victory Banners becomes useless.
Hold the duress, though. I would have gone for the duress just for the extra pings.
But, oh boy, does it not look like it matters.
Sickle.
Yep, he needed to buy the sword there. Buy the sword could draw 4. If he gets it off the Sickle, draws 3. He can come back from there, but...
I hate to say it because I love this deck, but this isn't looking good.
And this is sort of the situations that Thanatron and I found the Soviet deck running into quite a bit, is you're able to dominate the game so much for the first 8 turns, the first 10 turns, the first 12 turns, depending on the cards you draw. But eventually you just run out of cards in hand and you do nothing to actively win the game. And every other deck just runs more value generation or more card draw. So you just eventually fall behind.
Now we see the Commandos coming out. I believe they should better finish it this turn. Such a large quantity of procs.
with the
Gonna
Rangers
find the
pickup.
Rangers,
Yeah,
and
it's not going
it's
to be enough
gonna
to
be a
close it out, but this turn, but it's pretty over. Looking for just the biggest thing off this. Avery, great pickup.
but if this whole board is gonna get turned into Rangers.
That's true. You can turn it all into Rangers and then
Oh.
hammer the one in the front line. Oh,
You're gonna need
SYS
more
sees that,
removal.
so-
There's the
Oh.
buy the sword.
Oh, he draws 5 cards. He can take out a second one.
Oh, he can.
can
Do
draw
it.
another 5
Sickle.
cards.
Sickle. Do it. Sickle yourself. Come on. Oh, he's gonna go for another one. Oh, he couldn't find the out.
And yeah, I mean, that's
Matches your experiences.
yeah. And I have to say, SYS very much impressed me with both the interesting way he has built the deck. It plays very differently, but it plays well by the looks of it. But the other thing I was very impressed by is SYS's just ability to navigate through some of those harder turns, and also just seeing the total game plan. Seeing I have Commander range 2 and 3 in hand. I'm not just gonna jam them down and start playing convoys as soon as I have the credits to do so.
Oh, he's sticking to the Soviets.
And he says ride or die on Soviets, and it's gonna go into Japan Soviet, the most popular deck, the most banned deck, and the fastest deck that sees
Look at this
play in
hand.
the tournament.
That is a good hand. You got the comb. You've got the rush.
Yeah. Now, I will say, 66 Better has 4 column of his own, so Rush isn't going to be that useful on turn 1, so he sends it back. He picks up another one, so it doesn't actually matter.
However, comb in the front line is better than comb in the support line. You want to be putting it down first. However, if you are able to find one off Zhukov, that does make the trade very easy. So I expect to see the Zhukov come out. If you find the comb, you're happy. If you find the healing guy, you're happy. Corsan, not great. It will be useful later, but not what you need right now.
And the Type 93 not coming out. Oh, of course, he only has the 1 credit. And man, if that had hit a Colm, if that Corson was a Colm right now, coming out to clear out this game, would be looking amazing for SYS. Unfortunately, it is not, so we're probably going to see the Shibata and the Type 93 come out, and an Akari on the following turn, depending on the draw.
Just going to get these first responders going. However, this does mean Rush is now worth holding on to. I'm going to do a lot of damage, but there might just be the temptation to go for the Akagi and find some more cards that you can play right now.
Yeah, if you're SYS, you are basically a positive that there is a first responders being held up. So the question is, you just get the damage in now. You're probably not like sickling your own guy to deny the buff. Although honestly, that's a possibility. That was something that was like not worth considering. Is just sickling the Type 93 after hitting with everything.
And now I expect we'll see the Shibata dealt with, freeing up the ability to play orders. And then 66 Better is able to clear the board and just reset.
Yep, and this... Yeah, you're gonna... Oh, doesn't take out the Colm with the Extended Barrage. Drops the Chaika, and that's gonna make Rush harder to use.
Does make it a lot more difficult to use. Gonna go for it anyway. It's a 50-50.
Oh,
Considering going for the sickle first.
Sickles first. And he misses it. And look at 66 Better's health. He's on 8 health. Now, he obviously has the fortification and guards for days. So he's in a very good spot. But...
Oh, here comes the train. And these light infantry are going to be quite useful at clearing the front line. There's also the option for the Black Watch. I don't hate the Black Watch. It kind of forces your opponent to get rid of it because playing a Kagi and then finding new orders off it, they become unplayable.
This is a bit of the issue with the Soviet deck, is you don't have the suppressions. from Germany, and you've lost cards like the, I always forget the name of it, but the salvage, the AoE salvage card. It's just harder to get through guards with this deck. Like, if you're not being able to rush things down, if you'd found a rush here, that would have been amazing to get through one of these guys for free.
It's gonna better
He can
kill both of them. No,
not.
kill one. He
well.
can kill the train.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would have been better to just get rid of that train, because these light infantry are going to be a problem.
Yeah, he's thinking about holding on to the Raiding Brigade. I like holding on to the Raiding Brigade because of these Black
Yeah.
Watches.
It's definitely sensible. There's also combs to target with it. There's just not much advantage to trying to get it out. It's not going to make or break the game saving that credit by saving those couple credits by.
If 66
laying it
better
out.
does not play Fortification, he is at the risk of dying from his perspective to AN Type 93.
Also at the risk of dying to a Shenano. Just Shenano procs going
That is
super
true.
face. Oh, there's the
And he picked
expansion.
up big, not clearing out all the Japanese units. Sickle can clear up Colm or maybe hit the train. I mean, at this point, you're probably just accepting that you need rush to clear these things.
Yeah.
So he breaks out the light infantry before going for the draw. Finds Shibata. And I suppose you just recon back the raiding brigade.
But if you're thinking
hold
play
on
the
to it.
raiding, save the recon for next turn. If you play recon with no units in hand, it's just free draw.
Hold on to both. He's got the read. He's like, you have enough to, because there's the 845th, there's the Black Watch, there's the single copy of cavalry. There's units to be hitting with raiding brigade.
Yeah. And you also have the potential for that free draw.
Oh.
Now, gonna go for it now so that there's a target for rush. And probably gonna be hoping it hits the train. Not gonna hit the train.
Picks up.
SU 100 is a fairly powerful card here. If you're able to find a rush, there's the potential to clear the train and hit the HQ for a large amount of damage.
So, feel free to explain. Maybe I'm just missing this. Why does the recon draw 2 cards?
Did it draw 2 cards?
Well, he has 2 cards in his hand.
Alright, give me a second. Give me a second. You take over while
Oh,
I...
it seems like spectator mode is broken because that is a Colm coming out of the hand and there is no Colm in our point of view. So it seems like the recon might have broken spectator mode. So that likely means that he's out of cards in hand, which means there's no answer to this KV, there's no answer to this train. And it looks like 66 Better is well on his way to getting a win on the Soviet deck. And at this point, you essentially can't lose. Like, there's really nothing SYS can do from this point. Short of somehow sticking the key for 2 turns. But that's not going to happen.
So, we are experiencing just a couple technical issues. SYS's hand is currently empty. Do not be fooled by the SU-100 and all of that.
Trades off the recon, gets 2 Colms.
It's
And,
starting to look...
He'd much prefer the hand the spectator mode says he has.
It would be a much nicer hand. Now we're going to see Tractor Factories come out and closing out the game next turn. It should be over.
So yeah, 66 Better. Saying, you know what? Lost one. Won one. Can't ask for much more from a deck. And this is just going to be game. SYS trades off his units. Accepts defeat. And this is going into a tied series. Which is the first tied series we've seen so far. At least at 1-1. This is the first time one player hasn't won the first 2 games.
And the Soviet deck coming in, winning a game, securing a match on the much doubted Soviet control.
I will say that match did not look easy. That match did not fill me with hope. If 66 Better does advance into this tournament,
It was a walk in the park. It was a walk in the park.
no, no sweat. But now 66 Better has to pick which of his next two decks he wants up. If I'm him, I would just bring the German US deck. Just try to change of pace. Just try to get an easy win with one of the just solid best decks. I'm worried that if you
I
go to
flip
the
a
handlock,
coin. Flip a coin.
that is the
Heads
classic
one.
Bubbles move.
It means it's impossible to get psyched out if you flip a coin. If you play random and you just rolling the dice, then your opponent can't predict your plays.
Even
Become
better,
unpredictable.
enter the tournament with an auto-completed deck. Then no one can predict what cards you're going to be bringing.
I think some of your decks have been that, haven't they?
They might look that way.
I
But
think you had that. Was it Soviet Italy singleton?
yeah, I brought that twice.
Yeah. It's
different
amazing that autocomplete made the same deck twice.
But looks like he is choosing to bring the Britain-German handlock deck, and SYS is running it back on aggro. Throws away the Bergman. I would have thought that, like, obviously you want red, but I would have thought Bergman is still a card worth keeping.
I would have thought so too. Monty, a nice find. Thinking about going for it turn one, but I think you're just going to hold on to that for a little bit. There'll be more threats later. Delaying tactics, not particularly good at delaying much here, as the tank will just move up again. Shibata
Delaying
coming out.
tactics is actually a very solid meta call, because I've been playing a lot of games in the last couple of days, and there was a lot of infantry going on here.
Oh, the dilemma. It can smoke the Type 94.
Problem is, if you played on the Type 94, well, I suppose it does have 3 op, so even if you get a Type 93 out on the board to start attacking again, you're not going to play it.
Yeah, and for now it's unable to do anything. The question is, do we see the delaying tactics? Yeah, I think we should.
Tactics is going to be kind of nasty here.
No, delaying tactics first. Hope for the high roll or getting those 3 infantry next to each other. Believe
you
in
actually
it.
are guaranteed to get the 3 infantry next to each other.
I thought it was random how they retreated.
They retreat straight up. So if you see, the Shibata will go between the Recon and the HQ, and the Column will go to the right of the Recon, and the Type 94 will go to the left of the HQ.
Ooh.
If there's an even
it's going to be really funny now if that didn't happen. I was really hoping it didn't happen.
That would be a classic if that was just like fixed in the last patch and I didn't read the, the changes. But that is going to put
that.
The infantry next to each other and
pretty much miss a turn if you're SYS here.
I don't know what you draw. I think sickle your guy.
You should sickle. Play around the crossfire.
That's also a very good point, but then you can't play Recon.
I was thinking of sickling the other guy. The Recon.
Oh. That might have been better. Scouting parties for 1 Recon. I don't hate this, because
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Oh, but the 70th Brigade. 70th Brigade is a card that I have been changing my mind on. The more I see it, the more I like it in this meta, because there's just so many infantry. So if you can control the front line, it's just almost guaranteed to draw, and there's a lot less suppressed now than there used to be.
We don't have Glamour Boys anymore. The healing card, there's just less options to heal than there used to be. So every point of health is, I feel like, so much more important.
Just pushes everything up. The route is massive. Not only can it deny a draw, it also can set up this crossfire full clear. And the scouting party did actually intel on the crossfire. It does give your opponent 2 draws, and you take 2 damage in the process. But
it is what it is. These recons, it's going to be difficult to play it where there's 0 draw. You're going to have to accept that your opponent is going to be drawing something. You just have to min-max it. It's just going to let you overdraw.
That's an interesting play. I mean, he holds on to the route for potential synergy with Bergman down the line, or it can take out something like a Type 93 that's in the support line that's causing some issues.
It is a viable way of combating 33rd Recon, is giving your opponent too many cards to work with. Because, yes, they have a huge amount of options, and more cards is always better. Having more cards in hand is better. But most of these cards from SYS can't be used right now because they don't have the resources to hand dump everything here.
And
So there is
taking it out with a third one in hand.
Now, are we going to see Crossfire come out now? Or are we just going to see Bergman go for the convert?
There is no second Crossfire in the hand, so Bergman convert is most likely to play.
Absolutely correct.
And Wellington's getting its cost reduced nicely. He can actually blitz it out this turn if he wants. And
I don't think it's worth blitzing it out this turn. Now the question,
without the 35 Ts of the German ally, it's a lot safer against Soviets than you might think.
Should we develop here? We're floating a credit if we don't, unless we're just playing Welly Raw.
The production Panzer Grenadiers on the next turn does look pretty good.
There is also the...
Oh, he's just going to play Wellington. I don't hate playing Wellington. I don't think playing the... Yeah, I don't think playing the...
Look at this, right? We've got Shinano, we've got Type 93 with Anne, and we have Carrier Battle. The burn is looking really intimidating.
Yeah, I think you have to go for Anne this turn, because you see the Spitfire 66 better's hand. Not going to be a huge priority for him to play before this Anne, but if you sit around forever, just try to keep this Anne as the last bit of damage.
I wonder if we should actually put down the Recon and go for a Shinano. While there's minimal units on board, get as much Shinano burn as we can.
That's what he's going for. And there it comes, and that's going to be 3 to the HQ. Or 4 to the HQ, sorry.
Halfray gonna come out, but now you're in a strong position. You can go for the Anne burn, and you're very close to closing this game out. Oh, the SU-100.
SU-100 is lethal with Rush Type 93. No, it's not, because he lost the credit to Cole.
1 credit off lethal, 1 damage off lethal, but is in a superb position to close this out, and 66 better is going to need fortification as quickly as possible. It's going to have 1 opportunity realistically. Is able to draw 2 cards, but at that point you've spent too many credits getting there.
You can clear the front line for 5 credits, so you can afford to play 4 credits not on that.
No, that's it.
And that's just
not finding the fortification.
The front line dies to the choice of Carrier Battle or Anne.
I think you should Carrier Battle. I think it's cooler.
I think you should play Shibata. And pass.
Your move.
Yeah, Carrier Battle the Wellington. Play Shibata. And SYS takes it to him, and I am thoroughly impressed by SYS's play. It feels confident. It doesn't feel like there's any turns where he's unsure as to what to do, and I think he has a very good understanding of the total game plan, beyond just navigating each individual turn as well as possible, but just the total game plan he's going into each of these rounds with. I'm very impressed by.
And now Soviet deck is left for SYS. Gonna have to take down the British deck as well as the German deck. How do you feel this Soviet, I believe it was a counter-offensive aggro deck, holds up against the 2 decks left here for 66 better?
I think against Germany, which is the matchup that we were going to be seeing, it's actually pretty well positioned. The Russians can shred through Germany's units very efficiently, and Germany can sometimes lack for tempo against early game, like Cologne. Now, we're not going to see that, and the Shibata is going to be less useful against Germany. But 66 better just says War Machine or bust. Sends back 1-2-3, sends back...
Mouse in the opener for 66 better.
Yeah, he finds the War Machines, but the Schutzen and 96 infantry. These are going to be able to clear up these slow-moving infantry in the support, or in the front line. Not after taking a bit of damage, though.
and there's so many war machines there.
Yep, careful what you wish for. You full mulligan for war machines, you're gonna find some.
However, a fairly slow hand here for SYS. Obviously a strong board, but the follow-up is going to take a few turns, and 66 better. Lot of energy coming out over here.
Yeah, those are the mouse shakes of a tilted man, I feel like. Maybe I'm reading into it, but
That's what you do when you're tilted. Oh. He's it's like a radar. He's shaking the card around to sort of feel out the battlefield. Like a bat.
now this hand is not great at dealing with an aggressive start, but SYS hasn't really
Ooh.
had an aggressive start. Goes for the war bonds. He wants to get the 2 shoots in. So he thinks there's going to be another unit in the front line, so he's going to do 1, 2, 3 shoots in double trade.
Now,
And if you SYS, you're not thinking about that. The shoots in's a one of.
when it becomes veteran, does it lose the 1, 2, 3's ability, or does it keep it?
That is a very good question.
That was
think
not
it
a great answer.
I think it should lose it because you lose other effects.
Hold on. Playing those into 8k without playing your Winter Warfare, is that not incredibly risky if your whole board is about to be turned into routed troops?
Yeah, he just says, you know what, you don't have it. And even if he does have it, you keep 5 units on board.
And now,
but he wants the Leopold, so he doesn't let it give us the
but there's
chance
the
to find
potential
out.
counteroffensive. You go for the Winter Warfare and you find the counteroffensive, you could be closing out this game.
Yeah, it's just
doesn't
lethal
find it.
counteroffensive. Does not find it. Both players taking incredible risks here. And you don't
I
really
love
want
it.
to Kyoto. So I think you just push things up. You also don't want to commit much more to the board.
And here
Commit
comes the
Your
Leopold.
strategy and
But hold
SU,
on, that's
Sickle is just lethal.
that's lethal, yeah, with the
And-
SU and bloody Sickle.
If you're 66 better, you see the SU overdrawn, you're thanking the stars, but
Here's another one.
yep, there's the second one in hand. SYS closing it out 3-1 over 66 better.
And unable to find a win, bringing some more unique decks 66 better, which is appreciated. However, SYS just piloting and playing correctly, just being sensible and understanding what's going on, and that's it. With the right decks and the right set of skills to use them is enough to advance.
And if you're 66 better, you might want to go back to the drawing board on the Soviet deck, but maybe not. Like, you lost on all 3 of your decks. So there's not one weak deck that was just like, okay, I've had 2 very solid things. Maybe just an incorrect read of the meta. Maybe just those particular games didn't go the way that he wanted them to. But SYS has very much impressed me.
I mean, we were seeing a lot of matches that they were close. 66 better could have won them if things went slightly different. If there wasn't a carpet bomb, we would have seen a mass Blackwatch on board. That could have closed out the game. If there wasn't the ability to lethal from hand in that counteroffensive game, would they have been able to close out the game? If you get rid of this artillery, there's not actually much direct burn that the Soviets have left. When you hold the front line, you get rid of the artillery. I do think there were realistic ways where it could have gone differently. But that's enough from us. We're going to take a quick look at the bracket, and then we will return afterwards with Thanatron and Berto. But here we see Taboo advancing, Say advancing, SYS advancing, and now it's Radish against Last Man, and we will have the lovely Thanatron and Berto taking you through.
All right, thanks so much, guys. Just an incredible pair of guys there. Super nice. Some people that I love and respect, and who probably would never make fun of me live on air. Well, only one match left for us today, Berto. But what do you think here with Radish and Last Man?
Well, I do find it funny that Last Man is put right at the bottom of the bracket. But apart from that, I think we got some interesting decks here. Some, things that we haven't seen just yet. And I think we have a treat in store.
All right, let's take a look at our players and their decks. First up, we have Radish with a extremely impressive 1,200 matches, 850 wins, over 70% win rate, 4-1 in the Swiss. 52K tells me that you don't like airplanes more than you like 52K, but that is a very interesting favorite card. Let's take a look at Radish's decks. All right, so first we see the German US deck that we have seen a ton today. We see the 1-2-3s. We see some slight differences here. This is a very big and thick version. We see Stuka as well. I'm not sure that we have seen Stuka today, but there is a sort of almost win con that you can create with 1-2-3s and Stuka, where if you have ramped out enough and you have the money, then you can basically discard their whole hand. You know, there's with more multiple 1-2-3s, you could maybe get 4 if they have enough ground units, and there's a lot of aggro decks, possibly 3 or 4 cards discarded in a turn, something ridiculous like that. Of course, the double second Michigans with the 1-2-3, the Michigan money machine is definitely in play as well. Moving on to the Japan Soviet that we have also seen so much today. We've seen this catch bans because of how good it is. We see again, this is another member of the single Aichi club that the membership is expanding. You do wonder with the lineup similarities and the list similarities between Sai and Radish, if they maybe played together, maybe prepared together for the event. It certainly seems that way. Moving on to US Soviet, we have probably the most interesting deck Radish has, and more of the sort of one-off variety, something that we haven't seen as much today. I don't think we've seen Hell on Wheels at all, but we still have 1-2-3s, we still have the ramp, we still have Michigans, but then we have Soviets instead, and bringing that sort of counter-offensive play for a possible big lethal swing. By the sword, providing a little bit of draw. Guards mechanized also providing some draw. And then Soviet Japan, as we have seen basically from almost all of, no, Japan Soviet we've seen from almost all of our players, but a couple of them doubling down on it and bringing the inverse, the Soviet Japan. And that has proven to be really strong too. The P40B Tomahawk, again, a very interesting card that Sai brought as well. So we'll have to see if maybe they end up in the. So maybe we'll see a Tomahawk on the board.
Yeah, we didn't get to see the Tomahawk from Sai on his deck, but you know, with enough Tomahawks, surely we'll see it played out eventually. Next up, we have Last Man with a huge 2,035 games played, a 61% win rate, 3-2 in the Swiss, and of course, the favorite card has to be To the Last Man. It's only natural. And once we get into the lists, we'll see he does have a Japanese deck. It does not run To the Last Man, unfortunately. But it does run Uprising, which sometimes feels like the same thing for 5 credits. This is a Intel deck, of course. This has been very popular on ladder, and a little less popular in this tournament, but it's still being represented and is, of course, a very powerful deck. Next up, we have this German-Britain control draw denial, where you have a few ways to put routed troops on top of your opponent's decks to really just kind of nullify those draws. And we have a similar thing, except this time with the British main nation instead of Germany, and having a very similar game plan. I would say the main difference between these decks and how they play really comes down to the different elites you have access to. In Germany, you have really powerful top end like Capitulation and Leopold. And in Britain, you have that new Queen's Own, which is a incredible threat that also sort of denies your opponent a draw by putting a card on top of your opponent's deck. And finally, the most unique deck from Last Man here is a Soviet Italy control. Before the expansion dropped, this list was really popular. And now Last Man is bringing it back with a few new fun tools. You do have that new 335th, or is it 338th Guards Naval. And one really powerful thing you can do with that is you're actually able to pull out the 4th Guards rifles once it reaches 3 or less cost in your hand to get out another 9/9, which of course is an incredibly powerful thing to do. And we'll see if he'll be able to pull it off in these coming games.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is an interesting shape up. We see Last Man banning Japan, obviously. Last Man basically honorary team heavy for the day because he's got some heavy decks. So he bans the aggro deck because you gotta. And then, of course, Radish banning the German deck from Last Man. How do you feel about those ban choices? Would you have picked any differently if you were Radish? I think Last Man's pick is obvious.
Yeah, I think Last Man's pick makes a lot of sense. And I suppose if you're Radish, you're expecting your hyper aggro to get banned, then banning the Germany makes a lot of sense because Capitulation Leopold are just really good against these more mid-rangey kinds of decks, and that can be really hard to deal with, trying not to overextend.
Radish, as you said, maybe anticipating what was getting banned for him, therefore banning what would work out best in that situation, which is really excellent. As J King actually pointed out to us previous, Radish last tournament went 5-0 in the Swiss and then one top 8 going 9-0. So a full 14-0 untouchable cup run for the last expansion from Radish. So he is truly on one. Anticipating possibly the bans perfectly would be maybe continuing the streak. Let's see what we've got.
This Type 94 draw is just absolutely gargantuan for Radish.
Yeah, what a excellent start immediately. Was Radish's Swiss record 4-1 or 5-0? Did he finally take a loss?
Well, last time it was 5-0. This time, I think it was also 5-0.
No, 4-1.
4-1.
4-1 says the statistics department. We thank you for that. So he has finally tasted his own blood. Possibly found it sweet. We'd have to ask.
Oh, I am quite surprised that Last Man did not trade with the Bergman here. He finds a Flampanzer, but that's an extra 3 damage you're taking.
A lot of early damage for sure. Cromwell helpful. Guard is going to be really nice, but yeah, as we pointed out, already down 8 health. But this is probably the most aggro deck that Radish has access to after the Japan main is banned, right? The Tomahawk! We saw it. Woo! We got the Tomahawk, and we got a Tomahawk buff. What do you think about Radish and Sai both bringing the Tomahawk today? It's been a long time since we've seen that one.
Yeah, I suppose it speaks to a lack of answers for units in the backline. But now I'm a little surprised Last Man actually didn't suppress the Tomahawk here over the Yak.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, obviously, right, worried about the draw over the buffs, but Yeah, I would agree that that maybe is the wrong call. And we see Radish with some really nice infantry that can take the front line immediately. That's going to receive that tomahawk buff and immediately jump up. And I mean, look at that 4/4 Cossacks is too big for the Flampanzer to handle even. It's time running out already for Last Man.
Yeah, and I really feel like this is such a completely different game without Radish drawing the Type 94 on turn 1. Now that's interesting. The routed troops actually gets a +1/+1 from the Tomahawk. I did not know that interaction. And honestly, you didn't either.
I don't say I knew it, but it's infantry, so I.
Yeah. No, I just mean, like, how often do you see that sort of thing?
No, never. I mean, like we said, we haven't seen a tomahawk in who knows how long. So yeah, this is looking pretty bleak for Last Man, but this was certainly Radish's match to take as far as how this matchup would go. So not too awful for Last Man to go down 1-0 against the mighty streaking Radish here.
Yeah.
Gonna hopefully get into some better matchups immediately.
Yeah, for Last Man, you can't see that it's over, but that SU will be able to close out the game no matter what here.
You can take out the 2/2 with the Bergman, and then you're thinking, perhaps, or of course, yeah, Panzer III. You can take out the Colm. I forgot that he picked that up off of his doctrine, but yep, that'll do it. And we're gonna go big before we go home. 8 damage and an early for Radish. Impressive stuff, but like we said, sort of an expected result. Not to take anything away from Radish there, but that's a match that he definitely expected to win, and we will see where he moves now, because it's basically 3 different control decks, or not maybe control, but 3 different thick decks. So do you come with your US or do you come with your German?
Well, let's take a look, because I'm not sure which I'd decide. Radish goes for US here. I'm not sure how much meta gaming there is to be done for your deck pick here.
And of course, this US deck, pretty interesting. We have the Michigans and the 1-2-3s. We can do a lot of interesting things with that. We have 2 Calliopes as well, and relying on some M10s for our suppression, and then kind of wrapping all those tanks together with Hell on Wheels, but Hell on Wheels mostly helpful for the Shermans, right? I'm not exactly sure on how the card hasn't been played a ton quite yet.
I do believe it specifically has to target a Sherman.
So then the Calliopes definitely count, but that's about it. No base 4/4 Shermans in the deck for Radish. These players moving quickly through this game.
Not playing the
Not
War Machine.
ramping?
No, I don't. Okay, against. So
and losing the Missouri.
It leaves up an extra option for the production.
Right.
For a card to be turned into production.
You gotta assume that that's what he was doing there, but man, I don't know. I think you just...
It does feel a little on the extreme side. You're going from what, a 1-in-5 to a to a 1 and 4 or something like that. 1 and 6 to a 1 and 5.
Right. Hell on Wheels can target any tank. It just gets the doubles the attack if it is the Sherman, but it duplicates.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I was pretty sure it was you get a bonus for targeting the Sherman, but that you didn't need the Sherman. Still, which is actually super interesting, right? Because Calliope, although being a Sherman, is not a tank. So Hell on Wheels does not work with Calliope. We'll have to target the tank specifically. So I believe that the best target would be big old M6.
I believe this will only draw 2 cards. Or no, it does draw 4.
Does draw 4, and it's veteran. So let's see. Yeah, but it wow, takes its veteran, does not lose the 1-3, and then immediately turns into the giant M4 tank. So to answer J King and Bubbles earlier with the Schutzen, right? That would stand to reason that it would turn to big Schutzen, do the 3 damage, and then still immediately turn to anything else that you play.
And that is really the best of both worlds for Radish here. You know, I'm sure with him bringing this deck, he knew that interaction already, but
Yeah, probably repped that
that
out
is
many
powerful.
times. Hellcat is a very convenient tool for your opponent's Crom. Well, so it's about to Crom not so well, I would imagine. Doesn't have to do it now, per se. In fact, we'll take the Strat Bomb, take the credits down.
Ooh. Churchill's really tempting. These are all ground units, and the hand is quite full in the hand of Radish.
Yeah, that would be two deletes, if you will, as they would not have slots to retreat. But one of the best plays of the new expansion is, 5-cost route and Fog of War combo, or any kind of route Fog of War, any kind of routed troops Fog of War. Here's 2 draws that you're not looking forward to. Have a good time. And the Hell on Wheels. It's still a Sherman.
I didn't actually know that unit was a Sherman. Obviously, you don't
I
tend
don't
to
think it
play
was, because it did not duplicate its. I think I made a wrong
Oh, it
assumption
didn't
there.
double
Yeah,
its
yeah.
attack.
I'm sure.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
sure. The statistical department will correct
Oh,
us in a
yes.
moment.
No, J King did say it correctly, and I misread him. He did say -2 op on any tank. It's just the doubling attack on the Sherman. Now, Panzer 4H, I'm not sure what this can really find. I suppose you still have the ability to play Devil's Brigade and trade.
Yeah, certainly need to get the 7 damage out of the front line, but starting to look poorly here. Yeah. Oh my gosh, doing that 7 damage quick.
Oh, it's lethal. Yeah.
And it's just lethal. SU with
Oh.
1, 2, 3.
I didn't even see the SU. I was looking at the Hellcat, but yeah, either does it.
And that's going to put that together very quickly. As we have said all tournament long here, the 1, 2, 3 shenanigans are the potential for the high roll there is just silly sometimes. Being able to get multiple attacks off with the same, I don't want to say unit because of the conversion process, but let's say the same slot, the same entity, if you will. Being able to get multiple attacks, being able to get multiple effects. The ceiling of these strategies is just super high, and you can tell that Radish has put in the reps and is really effective with his 1, 2, 3 play.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, can Radish lose a game on stream?
True. It is certainly starting to look like he is fully plot armored. The helm, the shield, 11-0 on stream now.
The man just can't bleed.
Yeah, like I said, tasted his own blood once in a full 2 Swiss, and now this beginning the second tournament. So what is that? 20-1 in total over the last 2 tournaments. My terrible quick maths. I said
Something
maths like on
that.
bubbles. That's gross. Anyway, right into this one. Looks like we may have missed a bit of the mulligans there, but we have our Soviet Italy against the German USA.
I have to
Whoa.
imagine this matchup is in Radish's favor.
Padoyakov, not seen in quite a while, could be a little annoying, but we're going to route the health troops, and that's definitely important. And like you said, this is Last Man's Deck here, sort of a throwback to the last recent meta. Haven't seen Claim the Skies being brought by anybody after seeing it brought by almost everyone recently.
You know, the way to punish ramp is by applying a lot of pressure early, generally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last Man deck, you just can't really do that.
Yeah, the without playing any units, the Claim the Skies, not super helpful. And now, of course, the Claim the Skies on the Bomber, not what you want to do. Make it take that damage from a fight against a 6 strength Michigan. No, yeah, we're just going to, extended barrage feels really smart. Clean way to take that out.
Yeah, and this does limit Radish's combo potential a little bit, but you wonder how much he cares about that. When he's just got so much big stuff.
Yeah, now that the Comet can very cleanly take out Padoyakov, we're not worried about the reach that would have been maybe a little bit more annoying. And of course, Leopold comes out immediately now that the path has been cleared. Are we going to see just a unfortunate Maki mission here? Right into the... Oh, no, okay, another extended barrage. Missed that. Yeah, that feels like you have to.
But yeah, I mean, if you extended barrage, it's awkward because you can't attack with
Maki for a
Machi next
while.
turn. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Like, I'm not saying that it's wrong, it's just...
Certainly the
all of
slower
your
play.
options are, like, pretty bad.
Yeah, Radish certainly looking to bring it to 13-1 in sets here, with a 12-0 stream record.
Now, you can play the Machi and then make it fight this Panzer.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best play here, right? I'm not even sure what else there is to do. Finally get a good use out of that Claim the Sky.
But 22 credits is a lot, and the card draw to go with it.
Yeah, we might even make some more money on top just for fun.
That does sound like fun.
It's not the ramp, or I'm sorry, not the card draw he wanted, but capitulation. You only have 2 good units I've seen all game, and now they're routed troops.
Okay, he moves up the 1-2-3s version of the card. The 1-2-3s is always the one that is the 2-3 instead of the 3-4. When you play this 1-2-3 Bergman combo.
And you'll see why as he generates some more damage. By the sword is interesting here. I would almost think he would have to take his Maki, claim the skies, and Blitz play with these big ass tanks to worry about.
Yeah, this
We'll
is definitely the
s-
riskier line, but you can play fourth guards,
yeah, I was gonna say.
and you've seen Leopold, you've seen Capitulation. There's not a lot of other
Yeah, I don't think there's any
answers for this other
suppressed.
than just attacking Gru with units.
Sickle even more brazen. What are we thinking here?
Is that just a cycle, maybe?
Yeah, perhaps, but we're just gonna throw down. We're gonna throw down all of our hopes and dreams if we're last man. On Big 9-9. Last man
He
3 and
does
2 in the Swiss. Much respect, but a lot of tiebreakers to get in. That doesn't mean that he wasn't any less deserving than anybody else, but certainly not the kind of tear Radish is on right now.
this fourth does do its job here. Radish is put into a bit of a pickle. It's totally okay to just, trade off your units and say, what's next. But, that puts them a lot closer to even footing.
Keeping the Bergmans back? You have one. Okay, I was gonna say crazy. Bergmans +6 is the clear answer here. But leaving not leaving, but the HQ is open. So when does the face race start to get thought about here? If you're last man.
Well, you've already used your other Machi, so I'm not sure how you get there.
It
For
just
the
sits
last
behind
7.
the 9-9. If you can get that
Yeah.
6 off, you
I
can't
feel like I
buff
would have.
again with claim.
Yeah. I feel like I would have preferred, instead of going to the HQ, just to trade the 6-1 into the 6-6. Because I'm not sure how you're capitalizing on this damage to the HQ anytime soon.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I don't even think that there was like any more real threats, even something like a KV. Let me check here. I'm sorry for trailing off. Yeah, I'm not even sure what good victory banners can do. T-3485, KV1, those are going to be the big chances to perhaps finish that 7 damage off in some sort of strange fashion.
Okay. Yeah, if you can get like 4 units on the board, you can victory banners a KV1.
There are 2 attacking the colonies as well.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that makes it more reasonable. I still don't think it's the line I would have personally chosen, but there's outs.
Well, some
And
sickle
it is
cycles.
hard to, go head to head in the long game here.
Yeah, really holding on to that strategic focus for now. He's probably going to have to agree a little bit with that and get as much out of it as he possibly can. Dagger could be helpful.
Yeah, it won't come out until you lose this 4th guards, because 9 attack is,
Yeah, obviously the
just too
biggest thing on the
big.
board. Yeah. But oh, mobile defense. That's not a bad pool. Let's see what he does. Not playing Brit, so put whoa. Calm down. Interesting. Okay.
So
I would have maybe made him spend the credit for that, but we'll see.
yeah. Well, I think the fear is that all your guards are on one side, so this route can come out and leave the HQ open for attack.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, now Radish just moving in for the kill here. We will have to see strategic focus, and it's not going to be too big a deal. We really need to find those attacks in the colonies for our own health. But a big 2/7 guard to stop getting commented in the face, also really nice.
Yeah, that does prevent lethal here. At least lethal from hand.
Oh, 1, 2, 3 into Michigan, the Michigan money machine. We're here. We're having a good time. Right into Turpits.
Yeah,
Not being able to lay units is going to probably be a death. Now we can kill one of these 6/6s with dagger.
No, you can't because they're
both
tied for the
6/6s?
highest attack. Yeah.
Jesus, dagger.
And I guess that confirms it. Radish cannot lose a game.
Going for anything with Red Banner here, which, I mean, I have no idea what it could be, but
it should be 7 Falpini every time, right? Oh, Machi as well. Okay. Of course.
I mean, can you dagger now? But then you die to the tank. Well, you can take the front line.
Oh,
You can live, right? You can. You
no,
Maki
dagger doesn't
dagger.
kill anything. Wait, oh, trade and then I
Maki
see,
dagger
yes.
is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right,
Oh,
but you know the
he had the
comment.
comment.
Yeah.
What are we even worried about? Radish can't lose. Oh my God, the plot armor. It's
Yeah,
too
I will
thin.
say, to the last man's credit, it's funny using 2 and then the last man and it makes the card. But he did get 2 damage off lethal with KV left in hand. So there was a lot more potential than I had seen in the burn strategy there, actually.
Yeah, I think so, especially with neither Call to the Colonies drawn as well. So if that game went on any longer, we could have maybe seen him playing to his out, not only better than we both anticipated, right, but a lot of experience with the deck, allowing him to know that that out is there, right? And that's definitely to his credit. But unfortunately, all credit due to 30-5 in games, 13-1 in sets. Radish, the tear continues. We are going to see him tomorrow. Let's go ahead and take a look at our bracket and take a look at everybody we're going to see tomorrow. We've got Taboo, we've got Psy, we've got Radish, and we've got SYS. A really, really interesting set here of players. Some really, really similar decks, but a couple different interesting ones. Certain things like US Finland, some of 66 betters, interesting choices, didn't quite make it. So do you feel that this is sort of indicative of a meta shaping here?
Yeah, I feel like we are seeing how this Soviet Japan or Japan Soviet hyper aggro is really warping what you are kind of able to use, what you're able to bring to tournaments in a big way.
Yeah, certainly it is pulling the ceiling down on what these big decks can do and what these big decks can afford, and certainly how much time they have to live and breathe. But it has been an excellent first day here at the Expansion Naval Warfare Tournament. We will see you for top 4 tomorrow, a very exciting top 4. We thank you from the caster's desk and everybody here. Have a great rest of your day and tune in tomorrow.